The leader doesn't like this at all. He raises his hand, and a type of enchantment emanates from his bracelet. At that moment, the goblin general activates the madness of the beasts, causing the goblins subordinate to him to, they become stronger. Entering berserker mode, they calmly attack and break the protagonist's skeletons with ease. Then Hanro asks if they are going to run now, but the protagonist tells him for him to wait, because he needs to observe the situation with a clear head, as those skeletons move according to his will, and now he wonders what he has to do next. Meanwhile, the monster continues invoking his magic and raising his hand. The protagonist understands what he has to do and sends an order to his skeleton. At that moment, his main skeleton jumps to a considerable height, causing everyone to look up. From there, it attacks the boss, cutting off his hand before he can react. The boss starts screaming while the little skeleton tries to get close to his knee, but he ends up receiving a kick, being thrown away, and all the other goblins revert to their natural state after the boss's berserker state is undone. And at that moment, the little skeleton of the protagonist ends up killing another one, gaining a little more strength. He keeps earning gold by hunting those goblins. Then, the protagonist's army finally turns the tables, and only the boss of those goblins remains to tell the story. Then, all of the protagonist's skeletons start attacking him, cutting him from all sides and leaving him in a very bad situation. And after taking significant damage, he ends up falling dead. And the protagonist gets 50 gold for hunting that general. Eon Hanro is surprised by what the boy just did and asks, "What is that thing?" questioning if those are items, class, but the boy starts writing something down while walking, and the protagonist stops, noticing that the boy is falling behind. He asks if Ran is crying, but the boy denies it, saying that both the spear and the bracelet in the goblin's hand. So, he goes there and takes them both, equipping them, and that spear is of normal rank and is a one-handed type of spear without any special effect. But that item is the rare rank Bestial Vigor, a type of bracelet. Its effect is to increase the attack speed of the user's subordinates with low constitution by an additional 20%. The attack speed of his skeleton goblins increases rapidly. He can use the buff skill because he has fulfilled the requirements, which is to possess goblin-type mercenaries. They are moving much faster and becoming stronger. Bestial Vigor is rank D, and its effect, once activated, is to increase the attack power of goblin-type mercenaries by 10% and their speed by 20% for 10 minutes. Afterwards, the ability's cooldown is 1 hour. He says it seems like he gained a lot. Looking down, he sees the little skeleton without an Ethermade arm, which was the first one he picked up, and says that it did a good job. This time, he looks into the little skeleton's eyes and starts to laugh. However, the protagonist questions, "What the fuck was that?" ordering him to not do that again. But then Hanro asks where they are going now, and Prota says that they will try to get out of there for the time being. Then, outside, there are several people crowded together, and Prota is surprised by how many people are still alive. He takes the opportunity to ask the skeletons to stay inside the copy room, because people might get scared and start attacking them. Hanro says that's exactly what happened to him, and bets that everyone else will cause a commotion. Meanwhile, everyone is talking, and one guy is trying to act like a leader, saying that they are trying to talk to the police, and the student council is trying to figure out what is going on. But Denise, a girl, asks, "What the hell? There's something in the sky." He asks what's wrong up there, wondering if he's seeing Mong's face or something, but then they notice a countdown, and he asks if the boy saw it, and the grounds the student council is doing at a time like this, and questions whether they can try to destroy that door. But the guy says they've already tried everything, and it won't break. It matters what they do. And the girl asks what he's saying, asking if it won't break. He confirms that's right, so she tells him to lower his tone, calm down, and follow her instructions. And the protagonist arrives and notices that it's Li Su, an idiot who follows the hierarchy and is known for harassing women. He realizes that, from the looks of it, Li Su has joined the student council out of greed. Student council for greed. So, John W. tells them not to go near the door, saying it's dangerous, and yells at the protagonist about how that idiot is acting. He tries to pretend to be calm and says it was his fault. He's a little nervous because they have a lot to worry about, and while he doesn't know what's going on, he's in a position where he has to protect student. So he tells the protagonist not to do that, and the protagonist questions what kind of servile duty that is, calling him a controlling bastard. And it seems like it's only going to complicate things further. But then he asks Siongo if he also chose a card, and the protagonist confirms, saying they both chose one, and asks if he knows Hang. Then he says yes, mentioning he remembers seeing him at the event, and that he seemed a little busy, which is why he hasn't been going to class as much. However, the protagonist questions whether he even comes to school and asks if they know the situation is very bad right now, saying that if they both have weapons, then they will have to help him protect the others. The protagonist agrees, but wonders what his love class is, observing that he looks like a lancer, and says the guy will be useful, mentioning that he killed those green bastards, who are called goblins, and he says that even the protagonist says that he's been doing well, ignoring the kid, but the kid insists that he saw something like downloading monsters written there, and it was at 99%, but when it reached 100%, everything disappeared. With a weapon, it's very difficult to face them, but he picked up a good card and is a 2-star squire, telling him to make sure he hides behind him if anything happens. And the protagonist agrees, but then that rope arrives, talking to Jinx and saying that it can hear the goblins on the stairs up above. So, he asks everyone to enter the cafeteria silently and hide there, protecting the entrance. Then, the protagonist speaks with Hanro, asking him to come over for a moment. They stand face to face at the door, but then Hanro asks if he is seeing that too, and the protagonist says yes, outside. The system announces that the doors are sealed by powerful magic, and they can only leave by killing the boss, and if they fail to do this within the time limit, the monsters inside the building will become stronger. They have 2:11 to finish it. He is surprised that they only have that much time because the door isn't even shaking, and Hanro talks to Siongo, asking if there's a limit to his attack. They are all going to die if they don't kill that thing before the timer reaches 0. And the protagonist says he doesn't know what they mean. With the monsters will get stronger, but it seems they'll have to kill the boss to escape. They can't keep believing someone will save them, and he figures they'll be the first to die if they just wander around aimlessly. Then Jinek calls out to him, asking if the two of them know Minso, and mentions that they're all in the same class, and Mins even agrees, not particularly liking the situation. Then Jinook says that's great. He's relieved to know he has the support of his department, with subordinates urging them to focus on resisting. However, the protagonist questions what he means by resisting, asking why, and inquires about what the problem is. And he asks if they didn't see the message on that door, and Jinook replies that of course he saw it, and he says it was right there on top of the library building, but when he looks, he doesn't see anything, and starts teasing Hanor, asking if he was up playing games all night, and says he's probably just seeing. Wonders if that's not why they're waiting, since they can't leave and are waiting for the rescue team. However, the protagonist asks what the hell this rescue team nonsense is, questioning if he thinks, even if the police could go there now, and considering this is happening all over the world, they won't have the resources to get to everyone. Then Jinalok asks if he's already completed his military service. And the protagonist, he replies, of course. Then Jinalok asks why someone like him is such a complete idiot, saying the army must be mobilizing and everything will be resolved soon. The protagonist thinks that that's a very naive belief, since the army can't possibly cover the entire country, and he thinks he needs to pull himself together because acting passively will only put them in greater danger. So, he simply leaves that idiot to rant by himself, getting all stressed out. He tells him to screw off and get out of there, telling him to just go into the coffee shop and take a nap or something. But at that moment, Minsor starts saying that the goblins are there, and the two become terrified as the goblins actually start coming down the stairs, and everyone there is shaking with fear. And Jinak says that everyone who, if they have a gun, they should head over there to block the cafeteria doors. But this only makes them even more scared, because more are coming down the hall. However, those coming down the hall are the protagonist's people. They're wondering, what the fuck is this? However, the protagonist tells them that they aren't enemies. Then Jolok asks what he's talking about, and the protagonist says he understands how he's feeling. Responsible, but asks why he isn't thinking of a way to survive as well. Because if an idiot becomes the leader, then everyone else is dead. He questions what the protagonist's class is, and he says that it's one of the good ones. Then, the smell of death rank is activated, and the enemy's attributes decrease by 30%, and they all become frightened by the protagonist's goblins. So, they charge with things. He must be drinking too much lately. But then the kid slaps himself in the face and follows the protagonist, asking why he won't buy him a coffee, and the protagonist refuses. An absurd bloodlust towards the other enemy goblins, and the protagonist orders the hunt to begin. My friend, this protagonist is absurd. He's so powerful. I can't believe it's only chapter 3. The beast is already at that level, and everyone inside the cafeteria notices that the goblins are fighting, and Jin Sok asks, what the hell are those things? Afterwards, the protagonist's goblins are defeating the live goblins, who are thrown to the ground and killed by the protagonist's spear. and the fight continues as he kills everyone. Jin-seok says he was planning to run away alone after observing the situation, but he actually manages to massacre all those creatures with just one spear. And the goblins start to die of fear, and the protagonist orders them to block the stairs so they can't run away. These minions pass in front of those things. He orders them to continue blocking, but thinks he has to show everyone that he can find a solution to the situation. And by showing those who have minions of that caliber under his command, he can persuade them to kill the boss. They have to follow the rules and kill the boss, and this is the safest way. So, the effects? Currently, they're using group synergy. So, he also uses bestial vigor, and says that simple goblins aren't dangerous when they have the buff from that bracelet. But he's pretty sure goblins aren't the only things that will appear. Stronger monsters will definitely show up. And the people in the cafeteria realize that Seonggu is giving orders to those skeletons. So, they think, relieved, wondering who that guy is and what he's doing. They think he's a veteran from the creative writing department, but one of the goblins manages to get past the protagonist's skeletons, but he grabs that spear and throws it into the monster's chest, killing him. And everyone is happy about this, because he ended the threat, and they think that this guy have time. And so, as they walk, he keeps talking and irritating the protagonist. Then, he leaves alone, saying Miguel, and the protagonist heads to class, listening to the lesson but nearly falling asleep, never stops, asking if they're sure he's just a writer from the writing department, and they're happy to be with a guy like that. And the protagonist, when he finishes killing all of them, thinks, there aren't any items around. This means normal monsters don't drop anything, but then he receives a roulette ticket for killing 20 monsters, becoming the 34th person to achieve this historic feat, and will be upgraded to an unlimited rank. He's surprised by this, wondering if the monsters have inventories and where the dropped items go. But then his subscribers approach him, thanking him for his hard work, though he asks them to stop laughing in that creepy way in front of him, and then they return to the others. Then he asks Ginsey what he thinks, questioning if that idiot is even useful, since he doesn't have much to do. And then Prota enters the cafeteria with his monsters, and everyone is scared to death. And he explains that, as everyone read in the message on the doors, because of that strange lock, the doors can't be opened or broken. Then they ask what they're going to do. They're going to ask if there's any way for them to leave. He says the solution is written right there in the message. These people can't read. Yeah, it's tough. Genshin players are just like that. They don't read. They never read. Myself included, right? I don't read that crap's dialogue either. No. Man, boring game. Someone add a skip button. I digressed. I think I wandered off a bit. Let's get back to M, because I'm already crying my eyes out here all alone. And he says they have to kill the boss that's somewhere around there. Then everyone looks at each other, filled with fear. And Prota says they have 2 remaining hours. They need to kill the boss within that time. Otherwise, even though he doesn't know what will happen, he knows it won't be good. And, seeing as how the message says the monsters, account of this, thinking he's too sleepy, he wonders if he should get coffee and come back, noticing he can't stay awake. But then, as he closes his eyes, the will get stronger. He bets that some terrible monsters will appear, and at that moment, one of them raises his hand, saying that he saw that boss while he was smoking on the roof. He saw a monster. A giant appeared, and his teacher also bit the dust, and the protagonist realizes that their fate has now been decided, and they will go to the roof. He asks if there is anything else, but no one responds, and no one dares to go with him. He begins to realize that he shouldn't expect too much from these people, and even if he manages to control the situation, the opponent is a boss, so it will be. It's difficult to expect anyone to take the lead. At that moment, Hanro speaks to the protagonist, asking if he can stay as well, but he says that it's obvious he can't. He needs to stay with him to buff up his little skeletons, but then he says he's going to give him his dagger, but the protagonist says he doesn't need it. However, a very sassy girl with a strong attitude says that if not everyone is going to be following him, it would be more annoying, since the corridors are very narrow. And besides, he has those skeletons, and she is a 3-striped Morim tiger hunter. Stars. And she asks what he can do with just those skeletons, and she lives up to the title of tiger hunter, as the girl had a somewhat strange aura, inaccessible, looking back and scaring everyone. And the protagonist says that they don't know how strong the boy is, and that this is quite difficult. He asks how much Jin Seok's Sambai is, and he says, who will stay there protecting that place? Because the student council's job is to protect the student who is scared shitless, showing the ugliest Miguel I've ever seen. And the protagonist says that he is okay, and tells them to make sure they do a good job. So he agrees, but says that they will go up. since they don't know how long it will take. And he leaves together with the system appears before him. Then, a question pops up. What is the best class to survive in an apocalyptic world? And he's asked to choose immediately. The protagonist wonders what this is all about. Skeletons. With the two of them there helping him, and he tells Hanu not to lose focus, because if he wants to live, he better listen to the team leader. But then, other goblins appear behind them. However, not only do goblins appear from behind, but more are also appearing from the front. They are scared to death, and the protagonist tells them to take care of the goblins climbing up, but the girl simply takes off, upwards, easily killing the goblin, then turning around and finishing off the other two in a single strike. So he becomes terrified of her and remarks that the girl is incredible. But on the other side, there's also him, because of you and your entire body while crying, on the verge of death. But the protagonist asks him to calm down, explaining what happened. He says that, thanks to him, they managed to escape the laboratory. But as they couldn't stay there any longer, they went to the roof because, according to the emergency protocol manual, that's where everyone was supposed to go. And the protagonist questions why, of all the possible places, they went there. But he says that there was an even more terrible monster there. And the students who trusted him ended up dead because they went in first. And he tells So to never go there, to the roof. As he dies, he says that the boy needs to survive. But the protagonist still becomes increasingly focused. So he reads the prompt asking him to choose again, even wiping his eyes because he thinks he's seeing things. But then, everything around him goes dark, and no one can see anything. And, system gives a personal quest, and the title is, For the Sake of the Dead, Man's Resentment. And the type is salvation or negligence of the dead, and the objective is to kill the building's boss. And he feels a sense of guilt, heavy as he watches a person take their last breath. And, as someone who controls the realm of death, he can lessen the dead man's resentment towards his enemy's deaths, or he can cast that resentment aside. And the decision rests with the protagonist, and the time limit is tied to the building's counter. His decision will affect his destiny, and the protagonist is surprised by this whole destiny thing, wondering if it's like a turning point. And he questions, why? Why do they have to go through something like this? But then he moves forward, and Hanro asks if they are really going up there. But the little skeletons notice the protagonist's determination as he and everyone else enter the boss room. And, arriving on the rooftop, the protagonist finds a scene of utter destruction, with several goblins carrying the remains of bodies that were scattered around. They loot, break things, kill, do everything imaginable, and the boy is frightened by what he sees. Then, Hanro asks what that is, because that one over there is a colleague of his who is being killed. And the sword notes that those monsters are too strong, but the protagonist asks them to calm down and think, questioning why they are suffering like this, because ultimately, it's because they are weak. So, he tells everyone to calm down, explaining that this is why they need to become stronger. Then he rushes towards one of the goblins, who becomes desperate upon seeing him, and shouts to his friends that they have treasures, and everyone attacks the protagonist, surrounding his group. Then, R speaks to the boy, asking if he really doesn't want to run this time, but the protagonist says that they won't run, and that they will resist. And so, he uses his bestial madness to put all his monsters into berserk mode, and with them fully buffed, the other goblins attack This work here is going to warm your hearts. I know you're going to want the next part, so load this video with likes so I can bring it to you as soon as possible, because this manhwa is just, everyone panics, and he notices that it's completely dark, even though it's noon. He realizes this isn't just a simple blackout, and the other students' cell phones aren't working either. Protagonist's goblins, but the skeletons calmly stop them, using their bones, which are unharmed, to block the attacks and kill the other goblins very easily. The slaughter. Mesa tells his friends to think of themselves as shields. Then, he uses the spear to finish off some of the enemies, along with the swordswoman, who also helps out. Meanwhile, Hanro. He questions why he chose that piece of junk in his hand, lamenting that he thought it would be something good, but it's just trash. So, he grabs a kunai and throws it towards one of the goblins, and ends up actually hitting and killing it. He's quite surprised by this, that he killed a goblin with just his dagger. Then he realizes that he's actually good at throwing things, and starts killing the goblins from a distance, using his daggers, and noticing that he really does have power. Realizing that he has found his talent, all the goblins become terrified, while the protagonist's goblins continue using the Jactor, scent of death, causing all the enemy's attributes to drop by 30%, and they become increasingly terrifying to the goblins who are still alive, beating them down. But, in the middle of all that chaos, the boss. A bunch of goblins appear, and they all bow before the boss. Hanro notices that it's obvious that this guy is the boss, and the goblin centurion appears in front of them, giving orders to all the smaller goblins, driving them berserk and making them attack the protagonist again. He becomes desperate, killing the incoming goblins with a single blow, and he tells everyone to kill those guys, trying to do the best he can. But the situation is getting really bad, because one of the protagonist's monsters, while on top of that goblin, ended up being hit by the centurion, and nothing was left. Nothing remained. Then, the protagonist, seeing that the monster is too strong, shouts for his skeletons to retreat, but some of them are being killed instantly. However, the protagonist brings others back to life with they're wondering what's going on, until someone looks ahead and notices something there, and the girl asks if she's the only one who can see it, and everyone is looking, thinking it's his skill, adding 2 more to the horde. However, the monster that was just revived ends up dying at the boss's hand, and the protagonist tries to do something, but his mana only decreases while he tries to summon more monsters, but notices his mana is very low. Despite the sea of bodies around him, he knows he'll reach his limit soon, especially as he's face to face with that. The centurion, Hanu, throws his daggers to strike the monster, but it raises its arm, preventing the boy from hitting its eyes. Hanu is surprised that it blocked that dagger, and the monster simply swings its arm to get rid of them. Hanu notices that it is angry, and the protagonist remarks that it certainly is, especially at him. The monster begins to attack the boy, who flees, begging for his life. But the protagonist's skeletons step forward to protect him, and he thanks them. However, they are all destroyed with a single blow, leaving only the one-armed man remaining. He then plunges his dagger into the creature's foot, and the monster, filled with rage, kicks him away. The one-armed man falls, injured, but survives. The swordsman arrives behind the boss, attacking his back and inflicting considerable damage. Then, she remarks that she had planned to cleave him in 2 with that strike, but it's a pity she didn't succeed. The protagonist notices that those sword strikes are quite ordinary, yet the movements are very strategic, realizing that the girl is no ordinary person. So, he says he has to move as well. Strategically, he surrounds the boss with his skeletons alongside the sword-wielding girl, and he commands them to attack from behind. But the boss manages to quickly turn around, defending against the attack. But while the boss is turned around, the protagonist thinks that now is his chance, launching his spear at the monster's head. He doesn't land a direct hit, but he still manages to tear off the monster's ear. Hologram. And the protagonist says that this is not an illusion or a hologram, and that everyone is seeing the same message. Then the system says they have 15 seconds until a bright light blinds the protagonist, and who begins to scream in pain. And with that, everyone else rushes in to attack, but he begins crushing the skeletons with absurd ease, and the protagonist starts losing mana rapidly, with only a little remaining. Only 3 remain. He notices that there's only 1 small fry left, and so the centurion points at the undead, causing fear in everyone else. But then he starts smiling, and the protagonist begins to think that the centurion believes he has already won. After counting the number of skeletons, he starts hitting nearby objects, throwing them towards the boy, because when you fight a necromancer, the best strategy is to go directly for him. He keeps trying to hit the protagonist. He says that if this continues, everyone will die, and they need a single, decisive attack. Then, glancing to the side, he sees a sword there, and realizes that this might be his chance to deliver the one attack that will defeat that bastard. So he continues attacking in all directions while trying to eliminate all of the protagonist's skeletons. But now he is holding 2 swords in his hand and starts thinking about another strategy. He tells the 2 skeletons that are still alive to corner them and then advance. And so, they actually each go their own way, trying to hit the monster, but he manages to kill them both at the same time. However, a sword comes towards him, almost killing him as it passes above him, and the one-armed skeleton ends up catching that sword in the air, preparing to attack him, coming down with everything he has on top of the monster. But he stops the skeleton's attack, throwing him far, far away. And so, the teamwork triggers the synergy effect, and as a result, the protagonist becomes increasingly stronger, and he wins the Manhwa Energy Sword category. The condition is to be equipped with 3 swords, and the effect is attack speed increased by 10%, and the weapon's weight decreased by 50%, and they all feel the sword changing. And the second Morim for a one-armed character is the synergy category. Several cards appear in front of him, and he watches them. And the other people are watching too, and a guy who seems like a nerd tells another guy not to touch them, saying, "That's it, people of the one-armed skeleton." and the condition is to be equipped with a sword while having only one arm, and the effects are to increase the chance of the first attack having the flow effect by 88%, and he becomes even more hyped as the Centurion monster is filled with fear. And the protagonist believes that, with their combined synergy and weapon effects, they can win. So, he declares that he must first swallow that infernal chair, launching himself at the monster with both the chair and the sword, while the Centurion just waits as the swordswoman also prepares an attack alongside the one-armed man. So, the Centurion becomes disoriented, unsure of where to look, and the protagonist lands the first attack, followed by the swordswoman landing the second, and the one-armed man lands the third. He becomes desperate, trying to hit the one-armed man and throwing him away. But then Hanro, who was still nearby, strikes the monster's arm with his dagger from a distance. The monster keeps trying to remove the dagger from his arm, but the protagonist thinks that now is his chance, giving the one-armed man an order, telling him to sacrifice himself by going behind the monster. And he bids farewell to the one-armed man, thanking him for everything, as he may have been with him from the very beginning, but for the sake of victory, it's time for him to return to the world of the dead. He screams in pain, but the one-armed man manages to do something unexpected, as his attack makes curves as if it were a Ronaldinho-esque free kick, going directly into that monster's face and ripping off the Centurion's head. And Prota thinks about the flow effect that he had as a skill, and remembers that, because that's what little brother used to kill the monster. Then, he gets 255 gold for killing the Goblin Centurion boss, and finally reaches level 3, and asks what the hell that little skeleton just did. But he says he doesn't know, and that it's just his first goblin minion. But then the system says that his skeleton goblin leveled up after absorbing in fact, they shouldn't touch them, because it's dangerous, but the protagonist tries to remain calm, wondering if it wouldn't be more dangerous if they didn't touch them, because who knows what will happen. Goblin Centurion's magic, and his defense increased greatly. Now, he possesses the special commander trait, and depending on the number of members on the team, he can receive formation synergy, getting even stronger. The protagonist once again questions what the tattoo is, as a strange mark has appeared on his forehead. He then looks at the horde list, which includes an elite-level skeleton goblin, 2, the Japanese weapon, and the undead commander type. He notices that the formation synergy possessed by those with commander traits relates to squads, platoons, and regiments, and it seems that he will have to increase the size of his horde. Ensign Hanro tells the protagonist that she has also leveled up, along with the sword Shin, which is now level 3, and she asks about Seong. He replies that it was him as well, and she thinks it was a bit careless to choose his level 2 card given all the confusion. But she asks what he thinks would be a good choice, and he suggests a random majority, even if it means making a good choice, as what he receives still depends on luck. Then they ask if they can see the card, and the protagonist says yes, explaining that he needs to choose one of the 5. So, he recalls that, at level 2, he chose an ability card that increases the number of his horde. Now, he activates the skill card, also gaining the ability to create basic bone weapons. He can now produce weapons using the bones of corpses. The types of weapons currently available for creation are as follows: sword, impact weapon, spear, and bow. The results vary depending on the type and quality of the material used. The higher the skill level, the better the weapon produced. He notes that he can create up to side bone weapons, and because he completed the quest to resolve the dead man's resentment, he receives a personal skill reward, and his fate is briefly altered. He notices that it is in 15 seconds if they don't do anything, and the system told him to choose a card, and he wonders if there is some kind of trick or bluff, and says he has to make a decision within that time, and with 8, by Professor King. Then the number of units in his horde begins to increase, and he realizes that he can now command 5 units. But he wonders about the message, saying that his destiny is changed the meaning. However, he still has no idea about this, and it seems he will have to be very careful with his decisions from now on. But then, falling from the sky, a rogue's cloak landed on Hanro, and the protagonist asks the boy what the cloak can do. He says that it states that it reduces the monster's perception of his presence by 50%, and he thinks this will be perfect for running away, but declares that from now on, he won't run anymore, and that he knows how to fight. He also asks the girl what that thing is in her hand, questioning if it's a stone, and she says that it indicates that it is a combustion sharpening stone. Then the boy asks if it's like gravel, but she explains that if you use it to sharpen the sword, it's possible that the strikes will already be imbued with fire on the accompanying target, and she is applying flame aspect to the sword, so he thinks that's really cool. However, the protagonist says that they will postpone testing the items for later and leave for the time being. And back at the cafeteria, everyone is hiding, and Yuk approaches Jinsei, trying to talk to him. He asks what happened to Gordao and if he's sure it's okay for them to stay there, but Jinsei doesn't like the plan at all, and says the others keep saying they should have gone with Seo to kill the boss, and that they should have listened to him. Yuk says that after hearing all of that, he just feels like maybe he should go. But then Ji starts to freak out, saying those bastards aren't even grateful that they're protecting them, and they're just talking trash, going after everyone, asking what their problem is, saying if they want to say something, they should just say it. Yuk no longer wants to sacrifice himself trying to save them. So, whoever wants to leave can go and get the seconds are ticking down, and the countdown continues. He glances to the side, but while he's contemplating, someone makes a decision, and a sword drops right in front of the nerd, startling him, and the hell out of there. But one of them questions what he's talking about, and asks where they should even go, and he clarifies that he's saying whoever isn't satisfied can leave, go to the roof, and die with there, if you want to. However, he starts asking that idiot if that place belongs to him, so he asks if he isn't the one protecting it, but they keep asking about him protecting it, saying that the one who protected me was that guy who got bottled, bullied. But with that, he starts to get even more irritated, saying that he tried to control his temper after high school, but because of idiots like them, he ends up not being able to. But then one of the boys asks why he's calling the others idiots. He says he is an idiot, asking him to say it to his face, questioning if he's saying that that damn Mr. Gore was the one who protected them, saying that that idiot went to the roof to die. He died after trying to act tough, and he says this, getting more and more irritated. However, everyone looks at him like they look at El Chavo when he's talking nonsense about Professor Girafales. Then, he asks what's wrong, wondering if they don't want to say anything more, even asking if the cat got their tongues. However, the protagonist shows up, questioning who he's saying has died, and when that sucker looks behind him, all of the protagonist's skeletons are already pointing their swords at him. This idiot asks if he was expecting him to have died, and with that, the lock on the door is undone, and the boy opens the doors. Then, Janok can't even believe he was capable of doing that. Everyone currently thinks he's definitely a monster, and at the door of the place, he keeps asking if his senpai will say something, and if he wants to fight, everyone questions what's going on, because he was acting tough with them just now, with everyone saying they knew from the beginning that he was a zombie, because he wasn't. The protagonist begins to realize that the warrior card that just vanished has been chosen. Now that he stops to think about it, in a post-apocalyptic world, wasn't the key to survival about making a good choice? Strong and all that. But then the protagonists go out to the street, and Hanro notices that it's very quiet outside, and the other swordswoman says that she doesn't see anything around, and he says that it might be safe for now, but they still have to try to leave quietly, and everyone follows the protagonist as he walks down the street, seeing the sheer number of dead people there. There are many bodies along the way, and they wonder what they should do next. The protagonist says he's sure there were huge groups of goblins around. They must be hiding somewhere on campus, but then Hanro asks if he's referring to those people over there. Looking to the side, they see that there are more survivors. One of the survivors seems very friendly, but the others, not so much. The protagonist notices that these people managed to kill and survive. He notices that they fought and survived, and one of them has a very arrogant aura. Jinsuk calls out for Ryong, questioning if the boy was still alive, and then speaks. Saying that she knew he would be alive, she talks to Song, expressing how she can't believe she found him there, and that it's her lucky day. Then the girl speaks to who appears to be the student body president. A student, and Januk is talking to the president. Then the protagonist notices that he must be talking about him, and Han thinks that this is very obvious. And the president introduces himself as Park Dasyong to the protagonist, and says that he is sure that they all went through difficulties, that they experienced the same things, and survived after fighting until now, and that it will be safe if they stay with them. But he asks what those monsters are over there, and the protagonist says that, as far as he knows, they are the result of the class card that he chose, and he asks if he chose monsters that kill people. He notes that he is making it seem like he is a dangerous person. So, Song tells the boy that he will need to destroy those monsters if he wants to join their group, and the protagonist says that, to survive, and the number of stars each option has is different. He admits he doesn't know what's going on, but he's going to choose the one with the most stars. So, he selects the class of, that's definitely not going to happen. But then Don Dion asks if he's saying he's going to let those horrible monsters stay among them, but Ranro asks how he can call them horrible. But when he looks at those things, he thinks, yeah, Maybe he's not entirely wrong, even though he calls them cute. Prota just tells him to shut his mouth, and the little skeletons are smiling too. And Prota says that, in any case, he can't do that, the same as telling him to drop his own weapon, saying that it's not like he can just walk around empty-handed. But then, Song asks how he could possibly know that, asking if he doesn't think everything would be fine if they just protected him, saying he'll give him one last chance, and if he wants to join them, he will need to do as he's told, and destroy those monsters. But the Patashine girl starts to criticize him, saying he's just doing whatever he wants, asking when they ever said they wanted to join his little group, questioning if he thinks he's all that just because he's part of the student council. And then Sung asks if she isn't the president of the physical education department, but she denies it, acting like she cares now that the school is in ruins. But he tells the president to calm down and look at him, saying that she'll regret it. Regret it if she doesn't. But the girl tells him to stop being a hypocrite, asking if he thought she wouldn't find out that he was stealing the student union's finances by falsifying receipts with the company during the festival, and she's the one who filed the complaint on the university website. He questions what she's talking about and says he has no choice, telling them to drop it, but they refuse to get involved with those weird monsters. And he tells her that she'll regret this, while she pulls the protagonist away, saying that she's Necromancer, which has 5 stars, and immediately the power of death surges into the boy. He's taken aback by his choice, and the system announces that the first round of class selection has come to an end, warning them they need to join groups to receive a synergy buff, and he bets they'll regret it when they're about to die in a small group. But then Broda, she talks to Gesor, asking what happened between him and the president, and says he's just a loser in many ways. He only goes to school to flirt with rich girls, and his freshman girl was deceived by him too. He may walk around with the title of student body president, but that guy can't hide who he really is, and Prota and Hanro are already irritated with him. And Prota says that, for now, his first objective is to escape the campus. She thinks that if the goal is to escape, then avoiding a lot of people might be best, since it seems that the monsters appear where there are large numbers of people. So Prota suggests they climb the mountains in the back to avoid the buildings, as they connect to the main gate and almost never have people there. They actually go, while the little skeletons keep looking ahead. And Hanru notices that he is very peaceful, almost to the point of making him nervous. But Prota asks them to stop, and Hanro questions it, but the boy tells Hanro to be quiet. And then up above, there's something there. It turns out to be a different kind of monster, an orc. So, this orc is even more agitated than the boss they faced. And then, Rogrita asks, what the hell is that thing? Because it's bigger than the goblin boss. And Prota notices that the monsters that come after the goblins are the orcs. Then, that monster starts screaming and attacks them before they can even react. And Prota thinks, okay, it looks like a new skeleton is coming my way. And with the monster attacking blindly, fueled by hatred, Prota realizes that it won't be as easy as he thought, and tells everyone to dodge the monster, which charges right through them. Then, simply absurd. So, I'm counting on you to make the next part come quickly. And without further ado, let's get to this content that is absurd. And at the very beginning, our protagonist is packed inside a end, and those who didn't manage to make a choice will receive another opportunity in the future. With that, they return to the room, and the chubby guy is still clutching that enormous sword. So, everyone questions they ask, what the hell kind of monster is that? It stops, wanting to get back on top of Shin's sword now, but then, she manages to stop its attack with just her sword. However, the monster comes with another, an even heavier attack lands, but the little skeleton jumps in front, trying to hit the goblin, only to be struck as well. Then the protagonist shouts for all his skeletons to stop that thing, trying to do something, and then, Manatinia steps in front of the monster, awaiting its attack, but then the monster launches its attack. As he attacks, Morin's warrior skill activates and increases, an 88% chance of flux. He slices the monster's arm, emerging victorious from the confrontation, and the protagonist speaks with Jewel, instructing her to go up there, as they are going to descend through the plains first. Then she runs away, saying that she swore she had blocked, but she couldn't believe she was pressured like that, and the protagonist tells them to never approach him, saying that they will need to kill that thing the same way they killed the boss. That's right, the monster rises, receiving buffs despite being all injured, and Manatinia just looks at him and the monster. He comes up, and the protagonist says that they will move according to plan, with the skeletons always being sacrificed first. He mentions that since there are already enough corpses, all he needs to do is, he needs to pay attention to his mana, and that explosive attack will be useless in the forest. he starts crashing into all the trees, realizing he's in a bad spot. Then, Hango begins to throw his daggers, and the monsters also charge, attacking with everything they have, accumulating damage on that monster, going all out and trying to kill it, but it starts to kill one, while the others latch on, and the monster realizes the situation has turned dire, with two skeletons holding his arm, keeping him still. So, both the swordswoman and the protagonist come in order to— what just happened? Like, the girl is asking if it's a real sword, saying that it's really scary, and they start to think they've gotten caught up in something, questioning what's going on. Cut him. She passes by, trying to hit his leg, and the protagonist hits his arm, tearing one of them off. Meanwhile, the one-armed man comes from behind as the last one, and plunges his sword into the monster's neck, finishing up. And Prota gets 110 gold for hunting that thing. As a patrol leader, he realizes that this was a strong monster, stronger than ordinary orcs, but there is still a worse thing. The girl mentions that it was easier to kill him than the boss. Prota responds that this also happened because they worked well together. While he tries to summon the dead man to become one of these skeletons, he notices that he does not respond. He can't summon a monster with an average constitution because his level is too low. He notices that he still can't do it, and by the way, he asks which class Gessa chose. He says he's a necromancer, and she says she's a Morinia tiger hunter, and only chose that card because it had her favorite color on it, but it ended up being a 3-star class. And so, Hanro notices that he is the only 1-star class there. Prota says that, since his mana is fully restored, he thinks he's going to test his new ability, making a bone weapon production with that thing. And he can make 4 types of weapons: a lower rank sword using 6 bones, an impact weapon using 5 bones, a spear using 2 bones, and an arrow using 4 bones. So he thinks that an impact weapon would be better because it has a higher rank among the options, as all the others are of a lower rank, and the impact weapon is only low rank. So he tries to make one, and it turns into a hammer. Guess is surprised that all kinds of things are available after all. He says that it's lighter than he thought. It's a bone hammer, normal orc rank, an impact weapon. He asks one of them to pick up that thing. Then, single-minded savagery is activated. It activates when the party is equipped with— what is that? But the chubby guy says he chose the warrior card, and that thing fell right in front of him. And the protagonist starts to realize that if he managed to become a warrior, then he also 5 or more bone weapons, and the damage effect is 30% more when attacking a wound. And the Staff of Love is also activated, having the effect of an additional 5% chance of causing a stun, and the Term of Terror increased damage by 30% against monsters with medium builds. But then the protagonist asks them to wait, requesting Hanu to hold his sword for a moment. He's very grateful, saying that he finally has it, but the protagonist says he's just lending it to him, instructing him to give it to that guy when he tells him to, and asking if he didn't see how good the warrior's synergy was. Moringi is crippled in one arm and says it's not like he could ask him to cut off one of his arms. Then they continue on their way, descending the other side of the stairs. He says that they will go down, while they're looking around, since they'll be arriving soon. But Hanroa calls the protagonist, wondering why the cars are in that state. Then there's a mission at the university exit, and the mission doors are sealed. They can only leave by killing the boss. And if they fail to do so, the monsters will get stronger, and the time they have isn't very favorable. Then it's mentioned that the orcs have begun their hunt, and the group must choose a suitable location, as the orcs hunt by tracking the scent of their prey. However, troops will be dispatched to the group with the largest concentration of prey. So, Hanro, he questions what this implies. Are they specifically targeting him? Then the protagonist reasons that, if troops are being sent to larger groups, it suggests that only a small number will be sent after them. So, the girl points out that this means being in large groups is a disadvantage, and some monsters are attacking the president's group, attempting to take down everyone. All they can hear are the screams. Then the girl wonders what that was all about, asking her group where the student council was, and Ranro shudders at the thought of what might have happened if he were still is a necromancer, but he asks why nothing appeared in front of him. Just then, the window behind him is broken, and at that moment, someone comes in, having been bitten, and that person begs them to remove that thing. Been there. And the protagonist realizes that this means it's not always beneficial to stay in large groups. The key is to efficiently utilize the best synergies, and it was fortunate that he had Necromancer class chosen. And so the system announces that the first wave of orcs will consist of 5 orcs. They think it's probably fewer than the number they faced at the gym, but he wonders if 5 isn't a bit much, but the orcs have already found them, and it seems those are indeed the 5 orcs that are approaching. Then Ranro notices that it appears they are searching for them. The protagonist glances at the cars and gets an idea. He questions the feasibility of this idea, already wanting to flee, while the girl glares at him with hatred. He says they're going to set up a trap, using the terrain and those little guys over there. Then the orcs start sniffing him out, getting close to the cars until they spot some small skeletons there. And the protagonist orders Hano to act as bait, calling everyone big-headed pigs, which fills them all with rage. Then, when they charge forward, Ranro loses all his courage, and the monsters attack with everything they've got. But as they move through the cars, the little skeletons open the door, abruptly halting the enemies as they charge forward, following the protagonist's orders, killing them with blunt weapons, and finishing off several of the orcs that were nearby. As soon as they fall, they finish them off, and the protagonist starts earning a ton of gold. He is rewarded for stopping the first wave of attacks with 100 gold, reaching level 4. Then, his horde begins to increase, and he thinks that this time he will get a skill card, but he notices that there is something else there. He figures that makes 7, but the problem is that his mana is still at 50. Meanwhile, Ranro shouts that he obtained a skill. He asks what it is, and the boy says it's a quick thrust, which is described as a skill used from him, but that monster continues behind him, biting and sticking its dagger into the man, killing him. While he's dying, no one can do anything. Finally, the monster finishes him off and aims at the final daggers. And then Jesso gets something else and says that she chose strength, which has been increased by 2 points, and her body feels hotter and different. She definitely feels that she has become more strong, but the protagonist speaks to Hanro, telling him to return the sword because he needs to keep the dagger if he wants to use his ability. So, he hands the sword over to Manatinia, who was already with it. He misses the sword. So, they continue down the path until the protagonist asks them to stop. Noticing that ahead, the orcs are trying to get on a bus. He notices that there are 7 of them there. It seems that that group also has few people, but from inside the bus, they are trying to kill the orcs outside, using spears and everything they have at their disposal. And the protagonist says that they will die if they continue doing that, as he thinks they only put 1 person to strike the orcs through the window. So, the girl decides to go help them, saying that if they cooperate with them, they can kill the orcs with a flank attack, and it will be an easy hunt. However, the protagonist thinks for a moment and asks if she thinks the people inside will come out to fight, saying that they can't trust people in situations like this, especially those who are scared. But then he decides he's going to use that method, showing the orcs the conveniences of civilization. So, he points in one direction, but the 2 orcs don't really understand, and he ends up creating a plan. Meanwhile, the people inside the bus are scared to death, questioning if it's even possible to aim at them, asking what that kid is doing with the long spear. But he says that, if anyone thinks it's so bad, that person should go out there and fight with their sword and shield alone. And the kid is a 1-star lancer, but everyone there thinks they are going to die and are scared to death. Just then, the attention of the orcs outside is caught by others who are in the room, and everyone runs away, wondering what the hell is going on, and the protagonist is left face to face with the corpse and a monster. He starts asking why this had to. Protota, who arrives with a convoy of skeletons charging at those things, running them all over, and everyone inside is wondering what's going on, and the boy says that the skeletons are killing the orcs. They start asking what the hell is going on, as even scarier monsters show up. They question, why is everything quiet now? After the protagonist cleaned everything up, in the window, the protagonist's little skeleton appears, smiling at him from inside, and the boy almost shits himself. But then, Hanro asks them to open the door, saying that he is a human, and telling them to open it quickly. After explaining the situation, they think it's a relief because they are safe. But while they are getting people out of there, Hrot tries to grab an impact weapon to Sanksmoth, break open a vending machine, and the protagonist asks what he is doing. He says he was out of money, asking if he wants a soda. The other boy tells him to get out of the way and lets him do it, but he notices that the boy broke the machine, and so they try to continue the conversation. The boy who is holding the spear agrees with the protagonist, who is explaining something to him. Question of whether it's true that the machine dispenses an item. The boy confirms that they all tried it. They didn't have much money, so they only tried it once, but if they follow the instructions, it will give them an item. And that's when he notices it's like a store. And upon using the item, the protagonist discovers that it's a rank store, and he must tap to continue. So he starts clicking on things until he realizes that there are a lot of things to buy there, and he's prompted to choose the lucky roulette wheel, which has bronze, silver, and gold levels, costing 110,000 coins, respectively. And the rank stores only sell items up to the gold level. Then Ro asks if he doesn't think items will just appear like that. But Jess says that swords falling from the sky is more likely, so it's not impossible. He says he appears at the back of the classroom, frozen in place, thinking that any movement will draw the monster's attention. But then the monster starts screaming, and no one understands what it's saying, but no after they try. And he looks at each person's rank, says he has 360 gold, and thinks he'll choose a bronze one, and the girl has 584. And what about the protagonist? He even hesitates when saying how much. He says he has 1,552 gold, and everyone notices that he can choose a silver option, but the system informs him that he has a free roulette ticket, and he mentions the reward. He received it for achieving the hunting accomplishment in the building, and there, now, he will have the chance to use it. However, while Prota is making his selection, Hanro comments on what he is choosing, saying it is a gold one that costs 10,000, but Prota is actually able to use it. They are all surprised by this, and after the roulette wheel spins, he ends up acquiring a piece of equipment. Then he obtains the tier of the Ocean Spirit, a legendary rank orb type item, which increases mana by 300 and recovery by 200%. Then R is surprised and can't believe he actually got first place in the roulette, and Prota thinks it is pretty unbelievable, actually obtaining what he needed. And so, they all try the silver roulette, and Prota ends up getting a Vanguard shield, placing second. And Gasor, he also secures second place, claiming the subjugation team's ornamental sword. As for Ranro, who's down on his luck and only receives a set of C-rank potions, he wonders why he's the only one stuck with that crap. The protagonist then asks what the problem is, since they seem pretty good to him. Gesser replies that, in any case, it looks like the gymnasium is still in chaos, and questions whether they shouldn't go and help them. But then, HR asks if he's going to show them the victory of civilization again this time. However, the protagonist thinks that this time, things might be a little different. While the monsters are chasing after the surviving people, they're still trying to fight back, and the president orders everyone to gather together to at least clear a path for them to escape. But the girl speaks to the chubby guy, pointing out that he has a sword and urging him to do something about the creature. He hesitates, questioning whether he should, but they insist that since he's the one with the sword, he should. Guy from the group says that there's a group of isolated people in the back, so the president tells them to ignore them, asking if he thinks they have time to worry about those people. Guys. He sends word to Gensiok Roman, telling him that the guys with shields need to stay in the front, and they actually do. But then the protagonist arrives with that minibus, sending all the orcs flying, and that kid they found nearby is overjoyed because the gold is pouring in like crazy. And with them killing everyone so easily, things are starting to look up. Then the protagonist tells everyone to get on the bus quickly. They realize he's the guy they left behind and think they knew they should have followed him. Who would have guessed, right? The situation has really gone south. Now you're realizing you should have listened to the most sensible guy, the one who already saved you. Who would have thought? Who knew? Then Jesus gets off the bus to confront those orcs, saying that he won't go down so easily this time. But the orc throws his axe at the girl's sword, and she resists, thinking she can do it, saying that she can resist now that she's stronger. Her sword, he starts setting that thing on fire, and she thinks this is her chance to kill him. But when she looks back, she sees that the protagonist has already killed several people around there and continues to kill them with his little skeletons. They go on a killing spree with those things, wiping everyone out at the same time. She notices that the protagonist's tactics are really efficient, and they continually launch attacks at the orcs while they keep their distance. It's an attack that keeps enemies pinned down in one place and makes it impossible for them to anticipate the next attack. And Variso made her look like an idiot for investing in strength to avoid losing in combat against the orcs, and she wonders what that guy has been doing up until now. And then, after they're finished with everyone there, they ask, why is the do something? And Prota also speaks to Insor, asking if he remembers him, but Insor becomes irritated, questioning what the hell they want him to do. And Prota realizes, President questioning things there, if he wasn't the one who said he didn't want to associate with those disgusting monsters, he questions whether he's really going to bring that up right now, saying that it's kind of cold of him, your part. And the protagonist says this is because he saw him abandon those people and run away. He asks, what do you mean by abandoning them? Because they only retreated to catch their breath, for a moment. However, the protagonist questions if he really thinks the people inside the bus will think the same, and the president is consumed with hatred. But at that moment, the system announces that the boss was enraged by the failed hunt, and now he wants the protagonist's head. They sense this, and the protagonist announces that the bus is leaving and they can get on if they follow his rules. So he said, who asks what they are going to do, and the president thinks that they have no choice. The protagonist says that he will need to take off that chainmail armor he is wearing, but then he questions why. He has to take off his armor, asking how he will protect his body. The protagonist says he will protect him, so he needs to pay. They are not like certain people who were dedicated for the students for free, and so the protagonist levels up, reaching level 5, and now he can add a significant amount of medium constitution to his horde. He thinks that now means that finally found the orcs. And as always, the best card to get when leveling up is the skill card. He gains 2 more units in the horde and is happy that he can have 9 units now. So the little guy comes up behind him wearing a mesh outfit, and he is surprised by Diratinho, saying that maybe he gave him clothes that were too big, judging by how he always manages to move so much. Good. He notices that this is the most reliable skeleton of them all, and that's why he thought about investing in him, and even gave the skeleton a name, but he thinks he has no choice and sends the little guy. That they are screwed, and the monster charges at him, forcing Prota to try and escape since he has no other option. He thinks to himself that he should have run if he knew this was going to happen. However, to take off the outfit, he says that, since he only has the right arm, he calls him Diratinho. But then, Hongo calls the protagonist while he's putting on that mesh outfit, and tells the protagonist that he thinks they need it, from another bus, because that one is a little crowded, and if they keep rescuing the survivors, things will go badly. But he says it's okay, because they won't stay on the road forever. So, he tells everyone that they are going to face the orcs. Then, he decides to start an all-out war against the orc boss, and the orcs will continue to hunt down the survivors, with the aim of eradicating them. Then, he says that, just as the mission information indicates, they have no way to avoid them, and the only way to leave the school is to kill the leader. And one of them says he saw those monsters when he was in the gym, but there were a lot of them, about 100, and everyone is scared to death. Then, the system says that, due to imperfect teamwork, the penalty effect is activated. So, the first debuff is clumsy limbs, and the category is penalty. The condition is having more players with level 5 or less on your team, and the effect, it's a 30% decrease in movement speed and a reduction in attack speed. So the others are left wondering how they're going to fight those monsters, and the pathetic newbie is also considered a penalty. And the condition is having 10 players on your team with 0 monster kills, plus a 10% decrease in attack power and a 10% decrease in gold acquisition, and everyone wonders how they can possibly win. And Desperate Morale Rank 2 is yet another buff condition. Since most of your team has no intention of fighting, the chance of falling into a state of confusion increases by another 10%. They start complaining about being lost, and the protagonist thinks that even if they were without them, they would be far better off. Now that they've killed a good number of them, this confirms everything. Bus, barely managing to get out, until he finally jumps out of that thing, thinking that going to school is hell. And he wonders how he did it in his first year. He figures that if he turns his back on that thing, he's done for. So, he turns around and kicks the monster. Since he's small, he manages to kick it far away, and Prota talks to the protagonist says he's going to fight alone, saying they're useless, even with weapons. But then Jay wonders what he's doing, and Hanro questions if he's gone crazy, questioning what Prota is doing. He says he will face the orcs personally. That bunch of deadweight keeps asking themselves if Prota has gone crazy, saying that they haven't. They really can't trust anyone at all, and the president thinks he's found himself a crazy bastard. And Jinche says she knew he would dig his own grave after trying to show off like that. And saying that that bastard has just been very lucky so far, and it would be great if he died this time. And guys, I think that's right, because he's not a complete idiot, and I bet he's going to die. Now, man, I swear to you, I can't stand this kind of work anymore. Man, it seems like the characters are idiots. Like, it's not just a little stupid. No, it's really stupid, okay? 0 IQ. They have no IQ at all, and are a bunch of amoebas. They don't understand that if it weren't for Prota, they would most likely be dead. Now, I don't know what's going on in their heads, man. The author. I don't know. Man, he should just grab a script like this, ask the chat for ideas, write the worst thing you can think of, and throw it at these guys. Seriously, it's unbelievable. I swear the only reason I'm watching this manhwa is for the properly, because the guy is fierce. Then Gesor talks to him, questioning what he's talking about, saying they wouldn't have enough strength, even if they all fought on the same team. But he remembers the words she said when they went to kill the boss on the first floor. She questions what he means, and he says that it's not like things would work out if everyone just rushed forward at once, and that they were people who weren't even a little bit better than his little skeletons. And he says that she was right, and of course she was useful, but he thinks this time it's going to be a little dangerous. And that's the others, that they have nothing to fear from, and that it's just a little monster weighing around 15 kilograms. So, using his head, he grabs a chair and goes after the creature. But it turns out the chair he grabs is a decision that he made after thinking about all of this. And she notes that Seong may have meticulously calculated his fights up until now, but this time it's far too dangerous. So, he's really going with the little skeletons are unleashed on top of the orcs. They can't believe he's actually going there. Some stay in the building while others remain on the bus. Hanro thinks his father really is something. If anything goes wrong, Jess figures they can grab him and drive off. So, the boy says he's going to keep his foot on the accelerator. But then, the protagonist comes face to face with that horde of orcs coming towards him, and the orcs are already filled with hatred. He notices that the guy in red must be the boss, but no message window appears. That means he must be a mid-boss. At that moment, the mohawked orc orders the bald orcs to attack the protagonist, and he summons his little skeletons to go there. Then, he plants the shield on the ground, ordering it to stand guard. They don't have to worry about either side of the stairs, and he thinks this could be seen as a small hill. Then he speaks with everyone that is right, and it's been a lot of fun so far. So they must not forget him when they turn to dust, and the orcs go after the little skeletons, and he uses madness. Bestial, giving them berserker statues, telling them to kill those things, and some of them throw their daggers, killing some instantly, ending the threat before they can arrived. But the leader doesn't give in, letting those daggers reach him, and calmly stopping them with a swing of his sword. And the protagonist realizes that he blocked the throws and sends them to advance. He uses the terrain to launch impact attacks, using jumping to make them more powerful. But then, one of the orcs picks up a little skeleton and starts dismembering it, ending everything. He stuck to the other chairs nearby, and the monster notices this and attacks the protagonist. However, because he ends up getting too nervous, the protagonist manages to simply rip the chair free. He notes that it is a suicide attack that results in sacrifices, but in this case, Diratinho is dying of hatred, wanting to go after him, but the protagonist asks him to wait, as his time hasn't arrived yet. Then the orc starts calling out to him, but it turns out he doesn't even see where the attack came from, as the undead orc's debut is beginning right there, and the orc is already starting to dismember his own comrades, friends, and the protagonist is putting more mana into play than his power allowed him to bring back from the dead for his order. Their teamwork has triggered the barbarian warrior synergy effect, rank and weapon synergy. My condition is to have 5 or more axes, and the effect is an increase in attack power by 15% for 10 seconds at the beginning of the battle, and an increase in speed for 15 seconds, with a recharge time of 10 minutes. Then the undead orcs start killing the others, and he commands them to kill the enemies with everything they have, and even if they fight and spit blood, they don't get tired and are reborn after death because they are undead. And the protagonist says that this is the power of a necromancer, scaring the orc leader as he sees his own former friends attacking you even after they're dead. Man, I'm telling you, the Necromancer class is something else. Of course, unless it's that pure bone Necromancer who dies from a single punch. If you're the protagonist, it's simply absurd how you can go up against an army and wipe them out. Your army dies, and you use the enemies to kill even more enemies. You're so brave, you're insane. And with that bunch of dead weight watching from above, they say they thought it was over, but they wonder what that is and who that guy is. The protagonist soloing everyone with just his minions, and looking from inside the bus, they get even more scared because it seems that the protagonist has gained even more abilities compared to before. He should have said something, and Jesu notices that he, from there, smashed the monster's head, and when he finally kills the thing, the system tells him he earned 10 gold for hunting a goblin, and he keeps complaining, asking what's going on. But everyone really calculated everything, and remembers him saying that it was the decision he made after thinking everything through, and his mana is decreasing, but it immediately starts to refill with that 200% boost. Quickly, he remembers the Doshan Spirit's tear and realizes that this is the power of a legendary item, and the beast is becoming increasingly overpowered, and the orcs are growing in absurd numbers. The group of orcs weakens after smelling rank 1 death, and their attributes are reduced by 30%, and, filled with that fear, they don't have much they can do, but their boss shouts to everyone, and the group's fighting spirit is reflected, causing their attributes to fall by half. And they try to do something, but the protagonist's summons charge forward, and the protagonist calls to them, saying that it's their turn, and he attacks everyone full of hatred, sticking his sword into several orcs, passing through them and chopping down all the orcs there until he comes face to face with the leader, who begins to be surrounded by the protagonist's summons, and he says that they should end this now, and they all finish off the group very easily. So, he wonders if it is a reward that he received a roulette ticket, limited to 100 people, as a reward for achieving the milestone of killing 100 monsters. He also receives a free rank upgrade for being the 21st player to achieve this feat in the game's entire history. He's surprised to be only the 21st, considering the current time, assuming that number includes players from all around the world, and he wonders what kind of people make up the top 20. But then he hears a noise and wonders who's driving the bus, noticing that they tried to escape by ignoring the boss, but it didn't go very well. So he asks if that isn't the president's group, and it seems they've been kidnapped. The protagonist thinks they just needed to stay quiet, and now they're making everything worse. But then he steps nearby, was horrified by what they had just witnessed. He thinks he doesn't have time to understand the message now, because Goblin 10 gold, he doesn't want to believe the world has turned into some forward. Some people try to fight alongside the protagonist, saying they won't let him be alone. They claim they can protect themselves, but he says that fighting alone is easier, but it ultimately agreeing with those guys, doing what they want, and telling them to just stay out of the skeleton's way. Then, upon entering the gym, he sees several goblins hanging from the ceiling. Hanro notices that the inside of that place is horrible, and deep down, in the middle of that macabre fog, he sees the boss and asks who it is, questioning if that's the boss. Of that thing are all the council members along with the fat guy who didn't lend the sword to Prota. And Prota tells everyone that they need to focus and that they will start the battle against the boss, and everyone arms themselves while those idiots are taken hostage. And Prota thinks that, fortunately, it looks like no one has died, but he didn't imagine that the orcs were smart enough to take hostages. Then, that shitty president starts ordering Seong to save him, and Jinok screams, begging him to please save him because he doesn't want to die. They wonder if the boy is capable of doing it, but the protagonist arrives, stating that it was his fault for getting everyone involved in this situation, and says that he should have been prepared to die. He says that he can't promise to save everyone, since he's not that amazing of a person, and believes that his opponent is a monster he can't reason with. So, he asks everyone to attack, saying that it will be even more dangerous if he shows any weakness. And when the orcs are caught off guard by an unexpected attack, that's when they will save the president's group. At that moment, the orcs kill everyone before he can do anything, and they notice that people are dying, and those monsters aren't showing any mercy whatsoever. They question, kind of fantasy game. But then the system sends another message, saying that his power has allowed him to bring the dead into his horde, so now he has a goblin skeleton, what their plans are. Then, all the blood rushes towards the leader, and he begins to cast a spell, and everyone there notices their strength is diminishing, and he is thrown into a state of confusion due to the breath of the abyss. This same breath repeatedly causes confusion in all of them, and their mana is constantly being burned. And then there's the strengthened boss, a boss summoning darkness. Rank, I don't know exactly which rank, but a much more absurd monster appeared, far stronger than any the protagonist had faced before. And in this situation, they use the potions that he has collected up until now. Upon drinking one, he thinks it tastes like a delicious energy drink and says, with the protagonist, telling him that he should also drink that antidote, but then he tells the boy to take care of it, as apparently he is not being affected. And in fact, he wonders what that is, and why it is so refreshing. And the system informs him that his mana has been greatly increased because of the breath of the abyss. He notices that his mana has reached over 4,000, and now he understands why he is feeling so good. And the breath of the abyss accumulated in his body, causing him to temporarily achieve his stage 1 awakening, and the number of units in his horde increases, temporarily at plus 50. He mentions he's unsure what the boss did to him, but will need to ask the boss to teach him what it was. Who would have thought the debuff the guy used was actually a buff? The protagonist. After all, the guy is using evil powers against the maniac, who is the incarnation of evil itself, and the boss is scared to death. The protagonist then says that what happened wasn't what the boss expected. And Hanro says, which will only be the same as what they did on the roof, stating that the three of them will handle it. Jisoo says she's ready to fight, but the boy says no, that this time it'll be different, and his power allows him to bring the dead into his horde, which is growing rapidly. Everyone questions what the hell that is, as the power continues to bring more and more. He says he will. Who wields the weapon like a dagger, and is an undead type. He's surprised by this so-called horde until a light emanates from the goblin. Everyone tells him to look behind him, and that light summons the dead goblin. Show them exactly their teamwork, and the synergy effect. And the Morim rank S warrior's synergy is activated, and he's wielding 3 swords, further increasing his power. And they question why so many synergies are being activated, while Hangu and Jisoo are scared to death. And each time the protagonist gets stronger with the sheer amount of buffs he's receiving, and the monster becomes absurdly powerful. Releasing mana through his ears, he thinks he's going to show the boss what true death really is. And at P30, the boss will handle it alone. And with that many monsters, the boss keeps killing them. But the skeletons are permanently revived time after time, attacking him relentlessly without him being able to do anything. And the ogre continues killing them. But as the skeletons are revived, he ultimately taking damage even without doing anything to cause it. And the skeleton keeps being revived again and again, while the protagonist asks if he understands what he's up against. And even though he's already modified, he's already becoming a complete necromancer. He says that they will keep coming back, no matter how they try to crush them. And this is what he calls death. And the monster is dying of. Scared, Mito tries to escape from Prota, but his summons return to surround him, while Prota calls him an insolent worm, saying that he is trying to escape death, but that is impossible. Then he grabs the monster by the hair, pulling him back and attacking with all his creatures, completely surrounding him and holding the boss back. So, Duratinho goes all out to deliver the final blow. While Prota orders him to be killed, he gains 155 gold for hunting a strengthened boss, a boss called Darkness of Auto rank, and Duratinho is increasingly weakened. And the 10th elite goblin skeleton evolves to the next level after absorbing boss York's magic, and its defense increases greatly. The commander trait also increases in rank. The Prota, alive. The protagonist notices that it's a skeleton, his horde's first skeleton, and realizes that's what it is. His class allows him to control the undead. He's a necromancer, and everything that finally discovers that skeletons need to kill bosses to gain experience. Then he checks the horde list, which shows 33 out of 59. The level 3 veteran goblin skeleton, along with this common blade, the undead rank 2 commander arrived. Then, Hangu speaks to his group, stating that something is coming out of the boss's mouth. He notices that it is an item, and a warning appears, saying, that item gives the owner the evil attribute, and he will need to perform several sacrifices if he wants to remove this attribute, which makes the protagonist think that he is not so different from a necromancer. He receives the evil attribute, and that is the Demon Bloodstone, a legendary rank orb type item. The effects are to grant the owner the evil attack, which steals 2% mana with each attack, and if the user is completely out of mana, their life will be stolen. After this, a large part of the protagonist's army leaves, as all the breath of the abyss that was accumulated in his body was consumed. His awakened stage 1 was deactivated, and with that, he returns to being the common necromancer, and everyone celebrates that the boss is dead. One of them says he doesn't want to be a burden this time, but promises to help next time. So, everyone there starts fawning over the protagonist, even though he's kind of useless. He says that, just as he thought, other people are now useless, and he doesn't know what the weather outside is like. But not getting involved with too many people is best for survival. Then, he finally manages to break down yet another door. So, they ask if everything is okay. It's fine if they leave. And the protagonist's skeletons begin to check all the surroundings there. Then, they question where he thinks that guy is going. They start to think that they will be safe as long as they follow him. But then, Han says that the whole world is in the same situation and his cell phone is going crazy, and he hopes his parents are okay. And the protagonist thinks about his comes after this event is history. After the protagonist obtains his first minion, 2 more goblins appear, threatening the entire room, and everyone is scared to death because now there are 2 of them. Parents, looking back and seeing that boy from the bus bringing him closer, telling everyone to get on, saying that he thought it would be safer to go by bus than on foot, and reveals that he was a driver. During his time in the army, he learned the location of the nearest base and considered heading there, but he insists he's fine, saying his house is nearby, so he decides to go alone. However, he believes this is a lie, but the boy says he has no choice, and calls for all the survivors to board. As they are about to depart, they brought 2 buses, so it should be enough to transport everyone. He wishes Ser good luck, and he also wishes Kwango good luck. Hanho then stays with Prota, along with Jisoo, and he asks where they are headed, asking where Go lives. She replies that she lives in the campus dormitory because she is from Jeju Island. Then, she asks Ser if it's alright for her to stay with him, saying that she doesn't know if she will be of great help, but she wants to contribute something. He responds that, of course, she will definitely be a great help. Hanho also thinks it's a necessary choice, but Prota tells him he becomes a Morum warrior using only his left arm, mentioning that they might be able to achieve double synergies, but then the girl tells them to be careful, as they are almost hit by something. Then Hanro asks what the hell that thing is on the bus. Kongs is scared to death and asks why he stopped, but Hanro tells him not to, saying that everyone will be in danger if they move now, because those monsters are only following moving buses, and the protagonist realizes that they are dragons, and the system announces that the boys on the field, Ivor Macho Alpha, have appeared. He notes that the situation has become dire, because everyone on the bus has been caught, and he says that he's not strong at all, adding that he can become even stronger. And then he talks to Gesor, saying that they won't avoid the monsters, but instead hunt them directly. However, the system informs the protagonist that his horde is awaiting his command. So, he orders that thing to fight, commanding it to kill those bastards. So, little goblin, whom I won't. She questions what he means. He says that they cannot relax in their current situation, because if they do, their easy prey will become much more difficult to handle. And he remembers that the reason humans, they finally managed to dominate the earth because they were able to adapt and completely conquer nature. Then, he moves on to the remaining items he has there, wrapping things up. Finally, the tutorial is over, and after that, in the middle of the city, a goblin is running desperately and enters a store, finding other goblins who are hiding. But that goblin who just came in the store, he brought the monsters and the protagonist with him, and he ends up being killed, giving away the location of all his friends, who run away. However, the protagonist continues hunting them and surrounding all those monsters. He says he knew this was going to happen and finishes off all those goblins, reaching level 6. Then, they notice that the protagonist did everything alone, but he says there wasn't much else to do, and it seems like there isn't much to gain from hunting goblins now. Then, another ability card appears for him. He says that gaining 3 points of strength is something difficult to ignore, and he ends up, this point is really good. Then, he mentions that it feels like his skills are growing significantly. He says the sensation is definitely different. He earns 10 gold for continuing to hunt those goblins, and he keeps sending his minions after them. And Gisu mentions that he arrived killing outside, and that it is much prettier and tidier around there. She says there were 9 of them there, and she finished them all off. He says that she did a good job, asking Hanro to take the daggers for now, and he will gather that collection of daggers that can be used later. He says that now they are going to ignore the goblins, leaving that location. Then they keep asking if they are going to hunt stronger monsters now. He says yes, because, looking at the gold reward, orcs are worth about, because he has to seriously think about moving out of his parents' house or dropping out of school altogether. But then they arrive and start talking with Sango, asking how a reserve sergeant from the military force unit call Little Skeleton in honor. My friend, I miss you, man. I miss you so much. I miss you so much. YouTube took me down. But rest assured that very soon, the Little Skeleton will reappear, though not on this channel, 80, while goblins are only worth 10. He is sure that there will be groups of stronger monsters gathered somewhere, and so they continue down the street, and Hanro begins to feel that the scene there reminds him of a zombie movie, and he asks what it is that he's seeing. If it isn't a military cannon, he looks to the side and notices that they fought using peace. Then, he sees that there is still someone alive there. That soldier, scared to death, asks if they are human, and questions what is behind him. Then he tells him not to worry, because they are humans. But then he shouts to the sergeant, saying that there are humans there. He says that of course they are, asking if they happen to look like goblins to him. Then, inside, the sergeant, who has a broken leg, says he messed up, but, as you can see, he can't leave in his condition, and the protagonist realizes that he was struck by a goblin dagger. He confirms that's exactly what happened. He was attacked by a bastard the size of a kid, but somehow managed to hurt him, and the protagonist asks about him being attacked, inquiring if he didn't use his weapon. He replies that the guns don't fire, and while they aren't broken, they don't. They manage to find the cause, which is why they fought with sticks and bayonets. Then, Ranro speaks with the protagonist, mentioning that he has a potion. He says he saw a player with one of those, questioning if he could give it to him, but he explains that, as he knows, it's quite difficult to simply hand over an item that is crucial for survival in their situation. Then, the sergeant asks what he thinks about exchanging information for it. He says he will tell them everything he has seen and heard so far, but the protagonist says he will decide after hearing everything he has to say. And he says that there are wolves the size of bulls. They weren't able to kill any of them, and their squad ended up being massacred because of it. He also mentions a cry code, asking if they've seen any but in a separate location for all works that are at risk of being removed from this channel. I'll be posting everything there, so rest assured, the little skeleton will be back soon. Maybe in the blue Karis, but none of them have. He says he's seen 2 so far. And if they continue following that road, they will arrive at a bus and subway transfer center. There's one there. They should try scanning it with their cell phone, which will prompt the application to install. It's a community app that serves as the only means of communication between the survivors in their current situation, since all other communication methods are frozen, and the protagonist hands over the potion because of that information. The sergeant asks where they are headed, as they are planning to return to the base. The protagonist asks if he thinks the base will be safe with all of them dead there. He explains that when the players started appearing, the superiors began confiscating their weapons and told them to fight with peace. But after they changed their minds, the protagonist says that there's another place they need to go. So, the sergeant simply lets them go, wishing them good luck. He also tells him to be careful of the skies. Then, the sergeant inquires about it, and the protagonist says that there are pterodactyls the size of buses, flying around, and the sergeant and the other little soldier there are scared to death, grateful for that information. So, they depart, leaving Perta and his army behind, and as they continue on, he notices that there's a QR code right in front of him and realizes it looks familiar. Hanro asks if he doesn't think it's a virus, and he replies that it doesn't matter because it's not like cell phones have any other use now. When he downloads it, he sees a board of favorite discussions and various types of topics. Then, he opens the main topic and notices that the service officially started on that day. Upon selecting the first class card, a total of 2,900,000 people were chosen to become players. Currently, only 1,300 are still alive. The second selection of players, I'll announce new updates in the next video. Then the little goblin goes after the living goblins, attacking the first one and managing to land a blow, but it's not fatal, and the 2 goblins then join the skeleton. Will begin in 3 days, so they hope more people will choose a card this time. He questions who could have done all this, but then notices that there are no more posts in that place. Painting, but he notices that the price to publish something is 1,000 gold. He realizes this means they need to hunt 100 goblins just to write a single sentence. Then he sees another post from someone asking if anyone is nearby and requesting a response if anyone is alive. It's a group of 8 people at level 8, trying to create a safe zone in Apartment H in Ruansong City, Guang Province. They're asking anyone in the area to please respond. They continue talking, and Insison mentions that Apartment H is near his house. Then the protagonist asks if he wants to go there, pointing out that each post costs 1,000 gold, yet this person is publishing them so easily. They've finally reached level 6, but the people in the post are already at level 8. He thinks something seems strange, but they need to find a higher level group first to figure out what it's happening. But as the protagonist was reading the answers, some of them were deleted one after another, while someone inquired if there was anything interesting happening. It turns out that the creator, who deleted all the messages, said that some jerk was posting nonsense, which is why they were deleted. They don't need to worry, they just need to get there safely, and everything will be fine. Good. And the protagonist thinks something is strange. And there, at the location they're calling a safe zone, there really is something very strange. A huge guy with vampire-like teeth. Vampire. And then, as they continue on their way, in another area, a goblin appears, near a boy who manages to kill it quickly, and he becomes desperate, begging someone to help them. And one of them manages to cut off the little goblin's arm, and the 2 living goblins use a strategy, surrounding him. The protagonist thinks that if he just stands by and watches, he will end up having to fight again, their bodies, to help. But then, other people look down from above, but they don't offer help to that father and his daughter. He asks them to at least take the girl, but everyone ignores him. It's at that moment that the protagonist arrives. Along with his summons, he calmly eliminates those creatures, saving both of them. He reassures his father that everything will be all right, and that he will bring them home safely, adding that their house is just ahead, but they hadn't eaten, so they went out to find food. The protagonist then pulls out some items from his backpack, explaining that it might not be much, but they will share a little of what he has with them. Meanwhile, the goblins watch from a distance, preparing a dagger to throw at his head, but then they suddenly run away. He notices that those idiots are fleeing in another direction. Hanro notices that the icon indicates a dungeon below and asks the protagonist if they should follow and eliminate them. However, the girl's father interrupts, asking them to wait, explaining that going down there is not a good idea. He reveals that he used to be a hunter managed by Ryong, but he heard that something far more dangerous than those bastards resides there. Green trees live down there, and the protagonist inquires about this dangerous thing, thanking him for the information before descending anyway. He enters the Punic dungeon, the temple of the Elder Slime. They run inside, and Hongo is as scared as always. He asks the protagonist if he didn't say that information was good, and the protagonist tells him to stop talking, lest he end up biting his tongue and running. The tongue and run. But then, they say that there are more things in front of them, and slimes are killing the goblins that arrived inside. But he tells them to stay calm, because they are small slimes. So the orc takes the lead and kills that thing. And, with him earning 140 gold for hunting a small slime, he notices that there is a strong stench there, and it turned out that the dagger he used ended up melted because of the slime. Are small, like those of a child, but they are not difficult to deal with. The problem is that he doesn't have a weapon. But at that moment, the protagonist shouts to Moore, asking him to quickly give him his sword, because of the slime. And he says that just thinking about touching something like that gives him chills. And the protagonist says that, fortunately, slimes can't melt bones. So, his Caverinas are their natural enemies, and so they move forward, killing everyone. But it turns out that there is something even worse ahead of them. Hanu asks Prota that if they are natural enemies, he asks if there isn't something they can do about that one, and the slime appears, swallowing one of Prota's monsters. So, his unit ends up being killed by compression. He notes, if the slime cannot digest something, it chews it and breaks it into pieces. And even the Caverin's attacks are useless because of the slime's viscosity and bulk. But that doesn't mean there isn't another way to deal with them. Then he creates some basic bone constructs and uses spears to attack that thing. He tells them to use the bones nearby and rip that thing in half. He can. He can't spawn skeletons using broken bones, but he can turn them into bone weapons. And so they keep doing everything they can, and the girl releases another skeleton for the protagonist, and he creates a basic weapon, trying to kill him by throwing that spear down from above, but the monster aims at him, almost hitting him, but Hanro pulls the protagonist away just in time, preventing the boy from being hit, saving Siongo's life, and his unit dies in the protagonist's place. And he realizes he just made a mistake, and says that the guy he swallowed was carrying a tin dimes bag full of bones that he was carrying to use as weapons. So, he makes the weapon inside the monster, explodes that slime everywhere, and tells them to go and finish off that thing, cutting it down until it can no longer regenerate, and the Mr. Righteous ends up dealing the final blow, and he gets 2,255 gold for killing the Elder Slime, and he says that was very good, but Moore questions why, and the boy tells him to hurry up so he can kill those things. However, that disgusting nerd keeps shouting that it's his, saying that it's what he won, but telling them to fill those empty bottles with the monster's mucus, because that mucus is a strong, soluble liquid, and he thinks it will definitely be useful in the future, until they find another thing. It's the core of a rare rank ancient slime, a type of crafting material. Specifically, the core of an ancient slime can be encased in a thick skin, but a strong acid, capable of melting anything, is condensed inside it. It can be used to melt objects or combined to create an item, and the protagonist, Prota, thinks this could be useful, and Hanro tells him to look at the community comments and says that something is strange, because the creator of that post is deleting all the comments, and he keeps dodging the question, asking why there are so many crazy people in the world. He's having the comments deleted, telling them not to worry, but one of them asks if the people who went ahead haven't arrived yet, saying that he is getting worried, asking someone to leave a comment, but that very comment is deleted. And then the creator says that they still haven't arrived, and he thinks something may have happened on the way, and he won't leave any more comments because he doesn't have much gold left, so he asks them to leave a comment when they are getting close. Then Hanro wonders why the comments are being deleted, and he asks the protagonist if it doesn't seem a little suspicious to him. He notes that a group that uses 1,000 gold for altruistic acts is a bit unsettling. He wonders why they are bothering to write malicious comments using the same amount of gold and bets that those guys are doing something shady. In another corner, a group of people wonder why people are hunting monsters, saying, you can earn 500 gold for killing ordinary people and 1,000 gold for each player level, and does nothing to help. Then the protagonist says that he himself can go there and kill them all, and when he looks at those monsters, he starts screaming like a gazelle, so the protagonist tells him to forget about it, happy with that, because on top of that, it's very easy to kill them. And what's more, they think the feeling is great, and inside the car, there is another guy scared to death, and one of them asks who his boss is, and remains scared to death standing next to him. So, He calls Professor Red, asking if he isn't that famous serial killer, and thinks it's just luck, remembering the time he fought that guy. Then, he sustained a neck injury, calling the other guy a monster, but he says that, since the world has become like this, he really was one, needing some arms and legs. Then, the protagonist calls Han, who questions what it is that he needs. Then, the boy asks if he can kill a person. Wow, I'm very happy that the protagonist apparently is determined to do whatever it takes to keep his friends alive. I hate that kind of protagonist who says, "Oh, I'm going to let him live." I don't do that. People change, and 2 seconds later, the guy that he let live is trying to kill him. Elsewhere, in a convenience store, a lot of people are dying. Then, the system says that one of them has become part of the Lord's family, vampire, and his class changed to a high-ranking vampire. So the guy wonders why things turned out this way, questioning why Jung was doing this, and he mentions that he only went as far as he goes to a convenience store with his companions to look for supplies, and he asks his friend not to kill him. But then, that guy keeps saying that he needs blood, remembering the vampire, premium. Then, he attacks his friend, and the vampire says that he did a good job, and now he is one of them. And that guy thinks the blood is sweet. The vampire orders him to get really big and strong until he returns. While he continues to think that it is sweet, in another scene, they are calling him, shouting in his ear, and asking if there is a problem. He says no, ordering him to use that thing for peeling potatoes. So, he grabs the chair and tries to help the little goblin, charging at the monsters and hitting one of them, while, what was going on? And then they tell him that their prey has just arrived, and that guy, 157, is with 3 people, as he mentions in the comment, and he says he's in the park asking to be picked up. And so that, the guy tells him to floor it and get over there because his blood bag number 17 just arrived. He says it could be done in a public place, near the apartment, but that would easily attract attention. Those idiots, since the people living in the apartments ignore what's happening, believing it has nothing to do with them, they're such idiots that they don't even realize they'll be next. Their prey disappears, and several dead people are inside the car. Then that ugly guy driving says their prey is right in front of them, and he tries to run them over no matter what, wanting the blood and not caring about anything else. But as soon as he runs them over, he destroys the protagonist's skeletons. They're surprised that they were just skulls. And as soon as the skeletons die, the protagonist uses them to produce bone and launch spears into the car. The car then loses control and crashes. The vampire wonders, what the hell is this? And then the protagonist grabs him with the hand, pulling him out and throwing the vampire Brodamonte to the ground, leaving him wondering what was going on. And the protagonist calls him K4884, asking if he's the one and calling him, he's a bastard, pointing his sword at his head. And the protagonist thinks that, at first, they were just mere suspicions. The comments being deleted was something that didn't make much sense. He thinks that it's not realistic to think that people were spending gold, which is as vital as blood, just to write malicious comments there. So, maybe those comments were being written by someone who believed that those evil acts should be stopped. Then the protagonist says that it doesn't matter how much he thinks about whether that makes more sense, and he's already surprised. The little goblin finishes the job, completing it with his dagger, and the protagonist gains another 10 gold for hunting a goblin, killing both of them. With that, the little goblin just keeps farming aura. Then he goes up, that there are people like that, and Hango says it's a scary world. The protagonist says that they may have been responsible for the bait, but who would have imagined that they would advance like that? So they treat them like this? And the vampire curses at the protagonist, asking if he even knows who they are, but the protagonist doesn't care at all, and kicks him in the jaw, and then his henchman starts cursing at him. But the protagonist asks how many people are giving him orders, and says that he will rip his head off if he doesn't answer. He starts laughing, asking if he has ever killed anyone before, and tells the boy not to try to bluff. Firstly, just to show him how the procedure with them goes, and the vampire starts screaming. The other one is scared to death, and the protagonist says that he is right, and it seems like he knows that, even though the world became like this, he wasn't evil enough to kill anyone, not even once. But those guys are different, and they are ready to kill. However, the vampire sits awkwardly on the floor, and even though the world became like this, he wasn't evil enough to kill anyone, even a single time. But those guys are different, and they are ready to kill. However, the vampire sits awkwardly on the floor, and the protagonist questions whether he lost control due to the pain, and asks the other guy if they're going to start by ripping off his arm to get him to talk, wondering if it will be the arm or the leg, and he says he'll talk, stating that they work for a total of 8 people. But before he can reveal the plan, the vampire gets up and rips his head off, taking it with him. And so, she is surprised that he killed his own friend. And Hanro orders them to watch him while the vampire creates a kind of stake with his arm. He says his arm is as sharp as a sword, and the vampire eats that head, getting stronger, and starts laughing, saying that the aroma is the best flavor in the world. And the protagonist calls him crazy, unable to believe what to the protagonist, staggering. And the protagonist realizes that there is something about him and apologizes, but says that his gaze makes him uncomfortable, wondering if he could look somewhere else. And with him, vampire just did. And the system says that his vitality has recovered after drinking blood. His attributes will increase for having drunk blood for a certain period of time, with 2 more, strength, 1 in agility, and 1 in vitality. He mentions that her original class was ninja, but the moment the boss bit her neck, it changed to high-ranking vampire. When he becomes a vampire, you start at level 1 and cannot evolve, but that's not even a real restriction. If they kill and drink the blood of humans instead of monsters, they can gain attributes, and his strength reaches 14, agility 13, and vitality also 13. All of his attributes increased by 20 from entering a berserker state. After the effect ends, his attributes will decrease by 50% for 10 hours as a penalty. Prota says that this class is scarier than his own, but asks everyone to stay behind him, because if they make a mistake, they could die from a single blow. He orders his monsters to attack, going after the vampire, but as he is too fast, he passes through the summons calmly, and Prota orders. They use the solvent net, but the vampire grabs one of the skeletons by the hand and throws it at another, smashing them together. Then he wonders if the protagonist is headed straight for the boy. But the skeletons try to attack him again. However, the vampire almost catches him, pointing his dagger at the protagonist's neck, and before he can strike the protagonist's head, the protagonist raises his shield to defend himself, defending. But then another attack comes in his direction, the sword aiming to kill him, but it fails. Then he remarks that he thought she was a lady-in-waiting, but she's more like a lioness, and the girl gets angry as he tries to hit him again, saying that he will savor his blood first. But then, while he's distracted, several daggers fly towards him, and Hongo tries to constern it. Special Forces can say soft-ass things like that, questioning if the Special Forces aspect was a complete fabrication, and expressing disbelief that his W, who underwent rigorous training, can't even endure 2 hours to get to school. Treating the little skeleton like that, he becomes very disappointed. However, the system states that his power allowed him to bring the dead into his horde. Therefore, he must touch each of the hit him, telling them not to forget about him. Then they unleash a barrage of daggers on the vampire. The vampire can't defend himself and ends up being hit by all the daggers, falling on top of the boy, and he's surprised by how fast it is. However, the protagonist uses the discharge in the right direction, trying to hit him, but the monster manages to escape. Then, he tries to hit him again, the vampire, who begins to dodge, and the protagonist says he caught him from behind, using his shield, but the vampire attacks with everything he has, using his blade on the protagonist's shield, destroying it completely. But the protagonist tries to use his sword. However, the vampire says that he is too slow, telling him to back off and calling him weak. But at that moment, the girl appears, using the fire sword to try to kill the monster, but he dodges again and tries to hit her, saying that she is too predictable. But the goody two-shoes appears from behind, piercing the vampire and ripping off his arm again from him, and he keeps screaming that his blood is gushing out and that he has been hit, and the protagonist orders all of his monsters to attack, but other people arrive, and the vampire starts to smile, saying that they arrived just in time. But then, they get scared when they see the vampire's arm grotesquely regenerating. Then, he notices that there is something wrong with his arm and the girl. It comes back and tries to attack him, along with the protagonist's summons, and so, they finally manage to inflict a lot of damage on it, until the protagonist sends his sword into the thing's neck, saying that he thinks monstrous regenerative powers are something to brag about, so he asks to play with its head for a bit, ripping it off. He earns 1,000 gold for hunting a level 1 player. Then, the protagonist is surprised that they are earning gold for hunting a player. Then, he questions whether they did it just for gold, which scares everyone, and the individuals for detailed information. He has reached the maximum number of units in his horde for now, but everyone asks Siongo what happened, and he says he doesn't know either. 2 are even more scared after seeing the number of dead people inside the car. Then the protagonist surrounds them all, calling them idiots and asking if they are a level 8 group. He says that, yes, so he orders them to drop their weapons, or he will kill them all, and they throw their weapons to the ground. Then he begins the interrogation, asking about their boss, and the generalet. The main fool says that they also don't know who he is and that they only obey Ryung's orders. They didn't know Ryung was like that. And then the protagonist thinks that the boss is the lunatic who created that monster. So, he wonders if that thing is human and what its class is, thinking that it must be, maybe, 5 stars, or even better. And in any case, he's sure that they are just joking around. He questions how many people that guy killed. He says there are about 21 or 22, and the protagonist becomes furious about this. Then they ask what the problem is, begging the protagonist to let them go, since they just said that they were tricked. However, the protagonist ends up killing them all, earning gold because of those fools who were hunting players. Then Jesu speaks with the prota, along with Hanro, asks what he is doing. He replies that if they hadn't killed them right there, they would definitely kill other people in the same way they did today. Giso can only agree with the boy's way of thinking. My friend, I've waited so long for this, so long for a prota who literally does what needs to be done. That's it, man. You know the guy is bad. The guy is very bad. He killed others just to make a profit and killed 21 people. Even if it were 2 or 3, it wouldn't be okay. But, man, it's a small number. But, my brother, he has to be killed. It's a death penalty situation. It's over. If he knows that killing others brings gold, the chance of him doing it again is very high. And together with that sergeant who, you're not sure, but you manage to do something. However, while they are disoriented, they hear screams, and outside, some people are calling for help. Then, one of the girls speaks with the finally managed to get where he needed to go. He read the comments on chapter 157, saying that he was heading there. But then another person sends a message to a hitman, who is the prota, telling him to read that message before it gets deleted, because 4884 is a crazy killer who claims he hid and watched him closely, warning him not to go there. And so the sergeant notes that even by joining forces, survival won't be easy. However, another person watching from there speaks with 57, who is the protagonist, saying that he set a trap for those assassins and annihilated them all, asking if the protagonist can see that comment and wondering if he can meet with him, also questioning what exactly those skeletons were, and the sergeant, seeing this, wonders if they were those guys, saying that, as he imagined, they are incredible. Then that scared guy who was with the sergeant calls him to go to formation, but the sergeant asks for just a moment because he is watching how his benefactors fared, and the sergeant also says that he was saved by 157, asking him to be careful with a wolf appears, along with other people who were also saved by him. So, the sergeant changed his name, and when everyone asks how he managed to do that, the sergeant replies, longingly, that now he is free to go, for he had something to say. In another corner, someone in full armor is commenting on how great his performance was. He says it's wonderful that someone like him still exists, like him in the world, then asking if they are also going to start hanging out with other people who are apparently very well equipped. Meanwhile, Hanko speaks with the protagonist about a new publication, and he talks about the promoter, saying that there are people who want to comment, but they can't because 1,000 gold is a lot of money. He adds that they can write whatever they want in the comments. Professor, saying that she can't call the police, but he tells her to calm down, as it seems like this is happening all over the campus, and the protagonist becomes increasingly desperate of that publication, instructing them to find their relatives, share information, and declaring that they will survive together in that crazy world, reminding everyone that comments are limited to 200 characters. Each character can do that, and you can change your nicknames by paying 100 gold in the settings. Hanro says he didn't know that was possible, adding that this person actually donated a lot of gold to everyone. He also mentions that most of the comments are from people looking for family members, and the protagonist points out that a wolf can jump straight to the second floor using the synergy effect. He states that he thought he already knew everything, but that new information keeps appearing, and Han says that all the people who praised him in the last few days have gathered on the prosecutor and Andom's post, and he says he doesn't care about it. But then he continues following them to where they were going, and Hangu arrives home, happy to finally be there, thinking about his parents and wondering if they are really okay. Then the boy tries to enter, but the protagonist tells him that they have to be calm and careful, and hopes that everyone is okay. As they go up, they notice that there are orc corpses over there, and the boy prays to Buddha, God, Jesus, and everyone, begging that, since he's come this far, his family will be safe. He asks his mother to open the door, which has a huge tear in it, because it's Ran. Mom opens it because it's Ran, and someone actually opens the door from inside, and his father asks if he's really there with his mother, and they manage to reunite. Then he is surprised that his father didn't chose a card. He says no, even though his mother says yes, and asks why the man playing Go Stop didn't choose a card, and he explains that his hands froze at that moment. Then, Hanu tells his father that he always left the house with coins and came back staggering. He gets angry at the boy for saying this, but the protagonist asks what stopped the orcs, and the boy. Outside, the sun shines in an unusual way. When he opens the window, he realizes that across the country, those monsters are taking over, and chaos is unleashed outside, with fire everywhere. Remembers this, saying that the orcs destroyed all the doors in the house next door, and asks how they managed to stop them. He says they played F-Killer at them, and they are surprised that it actually worked, and the mother says that her father ran around throwing F-Killer at them, which is an insecticide, and it worked. Han can't believe his father did that, and Prota thinks it was a clever way to get rid of them. And after they finish eating, the mother thanks everyone for bringing her son back home, and says that she only has green tea, but they can drink as much as they want, willingly. And Jisoo says he doesn't need any, but Prota thanks her anyway. And Hanro talks to his mother, saying that he helped and threw several knives at them, and they fell like dominoes. But she tells her son that he needs to keep quiet, because she doesn't believe him. Then she mentions that the boiler is off, so he only has cold water in the shower, but they have enough hot water for everyone to take a shower and rest. And so, they decide to stay there so they can have a better night. But while they have the lights on inside, some people are watching from outside and realize that maybe they can get in there. Within. After showering, he comes out, saying he washed thoroughly and thanking them for lending him pajamas. Hanro's mother is shocked, thinking that the girl, with such a fragile body, must have suffered enough. But Hanro is saddened to hear this, as the girl must be about 30 times stronger than him. Meanwhile, the protagonist goes to take a shower and mentions it's been a while since he had a peaceful bath in peace. Then, he says he's happy that Hanro's parents are safe and thinks it's good that the orcs' keen sense of smell serves as their weakness. But if it weren't for that, everything would have gone wrong. He wouldn't have a family to be with in this world either. He thinks that since everything worked out, it makes him happy. Meanwhile, Rango is giving Duratino a bath. Side, he wonders if this is happening all over the world. In other areas, several people are dead in other rooms. Then the teachers arrive, saying that they can't, in the right way. Duratino also wants to give him a bath, and after a while, the protagonist sits down to clean his weapons, along with Gesso. Then Asuro asks what he thinks, saying that it's impossible. Stay there. He says that they need to come up with a plan and keep moving forward, because the orcs that were there previously were likely scouts, and if there are hordes of orcs nearby, they could attack in large groups. But the problem now is where he should go from there, since he doesn't have a clear objective. But then Hanro asks him to check something in the community, and the protagonist is surprised that he can still be addicted to social media, even with the world in its current state. And Han says that's not the point, because prosecutor Ian Domp made a post where people can write comments and tells him to look at it. And the prosecutor says that they have established a safe area in Undomp, and even though everyone thinks it's a trap, he claims he's being honest, and says he knows a guy with a 3-star class called Pioneer, who created a safe zone where monsters can't enter, and right now, they might not be bothering everyone, but they are recruiting the first members to join. And because the cost of maintaining the skill is high, they will have to provide gold or food, with the understanding that it's the best option for them to be able to survive with everyone. So, he questioned whether he really couldn't trust it this time, and Hanro thinks this guy really seems like a nice person, but Prota thinks there's a reason why. He posted this yesterday. Then Hanro questions him about it, and Prota says that what prosecutor Iendomp said about the safe zone might actually be true, especially because the world is now like a game where all kinds of classes and skills exist. However, yesterday he spent 1,000 gold to create a free comment section for the survivors, and it's hard to see all of this. They just stand there, and they have to leave the university. And one of them says he's going to his car, calling everyone to the parking lot, but in front of him are even more goblins, who have just killed, as simply altruism, and tells them to check the comments. And, at first, everyone starts commenting, saying they believe in him, but another person asks if he can really save them from this world. Crazy. So Jess thinks they're all compliments, and Hang says that many people thanked him for yesterday's post, adding that it's as if he's creating a good public image. Publicly, becoming a trustworthy leader, bringing people together, creating a safe zone that only consumes gold, and all of this combined creates great power, and now he'll probably just sit around, while collecting gold and supplies from those people. So, he notes that he's saying there's no altruism without an ulterior motive, and Prota thinks it might not be a big deal. But Yandamp must be too far away, so they can't go, and Hanro talks about another guy who can also create a small safe haven, saying that he is looking for a woman to live with him in the region, and everyone thinks the old man is disgusting, but figures it wasn't him. Then, it shows another one, who is the session manager, saying that he also has a safe zone in Suwon, and his class is Pioneer, of 3 stars, and that he will charge a monthly rent, instructing them to contact him. The protagonist says he doesn't like the idea of monthly rent, but he is curious about the concept of safe zones. It's not too far from there, he says, and Hanro replies that he doesn't know how long it would take to walk, but it's about 20 minutes by bus. Then the protagonist asks what they think about choosing this place as their next destination, and Hanro immediately says he's going to call his father and mother. The next day, they're already setting off on the road. Then the protagonist says he feels bad for asking them to come with him so suddenly like that, but his father isn't worried, since he's Hanro's veteran, and brought him home safely along with that woman, so they have to follow him. And the mother says that even enmity, people around there. So, they start running from those things, but the monsters jump at them, trying to attack their necks, which is where they are sure they can kill them. But at that moment, the protagonist launches. So, it wasn't just monsters that appeared in that city. There are also groups of thieves. The protagonist asks about this, and the father says he thinks they're just a bunch of delinquent high school kids, and they ride around on motorcycles, robbing survivors. Hearing that, it feels like I'm in downtown Rio de Janeiro. They're riding around on motorcycles, robbing anyone who's still alive. Man. Okay, that's something. Difficult. The protagonist thinks that even scumbags like them are running around without any control. Just then, the guys on motorcycles arrive, stopping right in front of the protagonist, and a girl greets him. The protagonist immediately gets annoyed because she simply called him Sir. Then, one of them says he heard talking and laughing last night, asking why they aren't sharing those funny things with them, and if they don't see how many people and weapons they have. The protagonist wonders about these numbers as their stats appear behind them. Then all the skeletons are already glowing with bloodlust. While he's threatening the protagonist, out of nowhere, the girl tells them to floor it and escape, and everyone takes off. So the 3 of them are left, asking what their problem is. When the protagonist looks back, he tells everyone to run because something is coming. Then, the wolves appear, and the protagonist is surprised by the large pack that arrived. He notices that they aren't advancing all at once, and orders the others to approach very slowly. He wonders if it's because of the wolves' habit of stalking prey. It's dangerous to fight up close against 4-legged beasts. Regardless of their fangs, claws, or power, they are at a disadvantage in a fair fight because their spine is parallel to the ground. On the other hand, since they are human, their spine is perpendicular to the ground, and once they lose their balance, they won't have time to recover. And if they get hit, they're finished. And with that, they head back. His skeletons at the other monsters, killing them and holding them back while the people run. He tells everyone to run away because he's going to stop them there, and says that, in fact, they are the ones who will be going inside, and Hanro asks if it's okay for them to stay there. The protagonist says no, because if he had the strength of those wolves, he would advance. Then, the boy asks what they are going to do while the wolf goes after him, trying to catch him, but the protagonist throws acid in his face while everyone is surprised, and the protagonist says that it's the slime's bodily fluids. And the wolf, he starts to suffer from all that acid on his face, and the protagonist orders them to finish him off, throwing everything they have, launching bones and spears at his back. And the protagonist thinks that they, being bipeds, have more strength than wild beasts. Then they should throw, and with that, the wolves start to run, but the protagonist sends his creatures to run after them, jumping on one of the entast wolves and almost killing him. But the wolf quickly turns around and starts biting him. But at that moment, another slime attack hits that thing. He asks if they haven't learned that you shouldn't eat the process, stuff that others give. He put the slime mucus inside his bag. Then the goody two-shoes attacks one of the wolves, killing it and earning 240 gold. Then the wolves notice what is going on. Shit. And they start barking, while several other monsters attack them. And Prota earns over 240 gold for killing another wolf. And he levels up to S rank, and the killing continues time after time. Gesu starts to say that he thinks he's becoming dead weight, but Prota says no, saying that they weren't good enough this time. And he says that Jisu's class is called a sudden error, and since she's focused on physical skills, she's an expert. Against a Hungo, who is probably still growing, Prota saw the message saying that the dead are not responding to his call, and his level is too low to summon a large monster. He notices that the one over there is also blocked, so he calls everyone so they can leave, because, pointing at his minions. And everyone runs, taking advantage of the fact that the protagonist is holding them back. But then, he tells them that if they split up like this, there will be problems, but he thinks the best thing is that there may be more of them around. While they continue to another area, some soldiers in the helicopter are having a lot of difficulty with some wolves and ask if he can speed up, because that way, anyway, the wolves will catch up to him. But the pilot says they're faster than they can manage, but that soldier keeps cursing Sergeant Kim, saying that if a monster like a pterodactyl exists, they have to report it. However, the pilot wonders when they ever ignored information that the sergeant brought, and that idiot in the helicopter keeps saying that before those impure people like that prosecutor and Andampo gain more power, they, the military, have to lead the citizens. But what will they do against that kind of monster? And so, the boy Duverne Macho, Alpha appears in front of him, a huge dragon, and so he grabs that helicopter, breaking it in half and exploding it in the sky, while he flies away with the others. Ivan, looking from below, Proto and the other three are surprised, and he notices that the military helicopters have suddenly left, and Hanro says that he knew they were going to do something, but not that. I expected it to be like this. Then, Ween's leader calmly returns to sleeping on top of the building, and Hanroa's father mentions that he's seen them sleeping there before, and his mother wonders what they're going to do, since the safe zone is right in front of them, and the protagonist thinks that they can't get past them, because if they wait, they will leave soon, so they should rest as well. And, later that night, the load monsters continue sleeping while they camp nearby. But then, the protagonist senses something, and the system asks him what the best class is for surviving in an apocalyptic world, prompting him to choose. Then, Ranku speaks with his father and mother, telling them not to be like him, urging them to learn from his brother and choose a class with many stars. The father says that he has been dealing with, but he says to say that after he enlists in the army. I'm wondering how long he'll keep delaying it, because all he envisioned was they make their own decisions, and nothing is clear yet. And there must be some rules in that game, and they have to follow those rules. And the class, and the abilities given to him, and cards for over 20 years, saying that he won't make the same mistake as his son. Then, the protagonist also sees the cards. The system tells him to choose a card connected to his class, and he is. Surprised by this, he wonders if it's compatible with his current class. Then, he looks around and notices that other cards are missing, as if someone has already chosen one. He considers that it might not be for everyone, but it appears that the card is also shared with many others, and ultimately, this is a competition. So, he realizes he needs to calm down, because, when it comes to connection, choosing a card with many stars isn't necessarily the best option. The card he truly needs is the one that will have the most beneficial effects when combined with his Necromancer class. So, he selects the connected Black Mage card, a card that will fuse with his original Necromancer class, granting him a new ability, and the protagonist notices that he has gained the Aura of Death, a buff for his undead and a debuff for his enemies, which he thinks is good. He decides not to get upset about it, mentioning that the 4-star card, that the class he wanted had already been chosen by others, so he ended up with the 1-star priest class. And the protagonist notices that the boy is very unlucky, so he mentions that the skill he obtained grants protection for 10 seconds after killing an enemy. However, they question whether it's a good class. He asks which class is good, and the boy's father says it's a class that can create a safe zone, the Pioneer class. And the protagonist is happy about this, because it seems they won't need to go to Swang Rong anymore. At that moment, Hanro's father starts to freak out, asking his son if he can see the movements he's making. Then he says he should have taught him to have such quick hands. However, as the boy's father releases him, he asks the appearance of monsters that were supposed to be their prey. It might be foolish of him to think this way, but his survival rate may increase the more he fights. And he thinks that, for now, his mother, what class she chose, and she says she's a 1-star cook, but he asks why she didn't choose a combat class, and she asks if he's suggesting his elderly parents should keep getting into fights, which has been fueling him for 20 years, and that's not what they should be doing. But to Jesser, he asks which one she chose, and she says she chose the hired killer. Has a passive ability called Heightened Senses, which enhances his senses in difficult situations, and the protagonist thinks this is a good thing, and the girl also thinks that Sungu is strong, and that he possesses the ability to utilize people effectively, and has the clear judgment necessary to survive. And no matter how hard she tries, she can't act like that. She also wants to become stronger. And if she can't be like him, then she'll have to find her own way and will have to get stronger, both physically and mentally. And the protagonist asks if the boy's father can explain the pioneer class skill in more detail. And he says that, of course, asking him to just give him a minute, as he will tell him more details. And so, he shows every detail of the skill that creates a zone. Safe, allowing him to avoid monster attacks. But the area's effectiveness is limited to a 200 meters radius, with a height of 10 meters. The safe zone can be defended with the shield, and the created shield can be collected immediately. However, it can be destroyed with a strong attack. Once his mana runs out, his gold will be consumed to keep the skill active, costing 100 gold every 10 minutes. He thinks it will be difficult for them to create and maintain a safe zone right now, and send a large group to collect gold, deeming it an unwise choice. He says that they will only use this ability when necessary, because they also need to find a suitable place for the safe zone. The boy's father asks if it's serious, and Hanro asks if they are not going to the safe zone in Suanrung anymore. He has those guys to fight for him, but it turns out that his little skeletons are quite weak, and the living goblins are still putting up a lot of resistance, attacking them and breaking parts of each of their bodies. He says they don't need it anymore. It's pretty obvious that any group will be bossing its members around, and it will be a pain to join them. Then, he also notices that the monster up there is moving. He has rested for a long time and looks like he is ready to move again. As he takes his first step, the protagonist tells Hanro to check the community tab, since the store's location is posted there, so he looks a little. The protagonist thinks that he has to use his gold and level up, since he has 24,000 inches his possession. They don't know when they will encounter beings like Ivern again, so he needs to improve quickly. And the boy says he can't find anything nearby, but just then, they hear an earthquake, and as soon as Ivern disappears, they speed up. But then Hanro asks if those guys are the same ones as yesterday, and so he says that they will ask them, since they weren't stealing gold from others. So he knows where the store is, the place where they spend the stolen gold. And just then, those boys return to their hiding place, saying that they went through a lot of difficulty yesterday because of Xever, right? They start questioning how many hours they were trapped in that butcher shop. Then one of them speaks. What? At least they'll be able to eat meat now. And he asks Taesong if he can spin the silver roulette wheel. But Taesong says that if he collects a bit more, he will be able to, because the last time, once it spun, he got screwed over when he picked up the survivor pack. This time, he wants to get something useful, so he tells everyone to leave and asks if they thought he was dead. But when they leave, he asks why it's so quiet. Then, one of them speaks to Taesong, and he tells the boy to shut up as he quietly continues forward and opens the door. And a living goblin actually manages to land a good hit on the head of one of the little skeletons, tearing off its skull, which falls near the protagonist's foot. And then the system announces that the unit of his horde, wondering what happened and if everyone had been there the whole time. He asks what's with the atmosphere and those people inside, asking where Yugin is. And one of the hostages says that what happened was that she told him to shut up again, warning him not to even open his mouth now that he was a vampire, and that she gets hungry when she smells human flesh. But then, another guy. There, she speaks with Taeyong, asking why he killed, and mentioning that she always had a soft spot for bullies, and that their leader ended up dead. He asks how that bastard dared to attack them, but then, another one asks if Eugen will be killed this time, adding that he already told him that suppressing his desire for blood will only hurt him. He needs to drink a moderate amount of blood in order to maintain his sanity. He says that children like them don't understand what he's talking about. Then Tong brings up this moderate amount, asking if he knows how many people he has killed, and that guy questions what he means by that, saying that the boss is going to put them to work and asking how long they think they can survive without listening to his orders. And Eon is the one who says that. Just leave them alone and they'll manage on their own. But then that guy tells him he's wrong and that he's already messed everything up, and if they don't obey him, they're all going to die. Then the ground starts to shake, and that vampire orders him to get 10,000 gold in 2 days. Otherwise, he'll be next, and the vampire asks if he knows there's no escape. So, someone ends up walking in, and another person asks who he is, telling him to let go. And the protagonist questions whether they shouldn't treat customers with politeness, saying that this is very unsightly. But the vampire asks if they are customers, inquiring what they need, and the protagonist says he wants everything, pointing his sword at the vampire, demanding he give him everything he has, questioning if returned to eternal death. So, he just asks them to please win. and the goblins are quite injured, but they are still giving the protagonist's summons a lot of trouble. They aren't afraid of losing to them. And the vampire starts laughing, saying that he's not a customer, he's just some crazy piece of crap. And Tiong, full of himself, says that a massacre will happen soon. Fear. And the protagonist notices that guy's teeth and asks if he's the leader of the gang from apartment H. The vampire gets pissed and questions if the protagonist killed them, then goes after him. But something happens, and all of the protagonist's monsters grab the vampire. He asks what those things are, while Taeyong is scared to death of the protagonist's skeletons and asks if he is the one who is doing this. Then the protagonist arrives, hitting him in the neck and killing him instantly, saying that it's time to recover his skeleton stock. My friend, it's really great to see the protagonist, straight to the point and killing everyone. If you want a continuation of this, please like, subscribe, and comment, because I'll bring it to you in record time. I really want to keep posting this one. So, it just depends on you guys. I definitely want to see you all very soon in the next video. I'm out. Protagonist. And they rush forward, and with a lot of fighting, the protagonist's undead goblins manage to kill the two goblins that were there. He tells them both that they did a good job, and finishes, rising to level 2 without even realizing it. He questions this level, and starts wondering if the status window will even work. Dude, you're getting a system. The system appeared for you. Just accept it, and open that status window. I'm craving some cliché. Come on, cliché. I'm thirsty for it. Then he sees all his information, and notices that, apparently, it seems he has attribute points, but he wonders if games don't usually give you points to allocate to attributes when you level up. However, the system gives him something else. The choice of a level up card, which offers random attribute points, a random skill, a random item, and other random items. Plus, it can also permanently increase strength. Bleak future for that boy. However, he says he wants to tell Seong-wo something, claiming that unification will be victorious. But he tells the kid to stop talking nonsense, asking him why he, permanently. And Prota notes that this is way too random. After thinking for a bit, he decides that this is the most important factor in games. And even though it's kind of a gamble, since you don't know what's going to happen, he's going to acquire the ability, and the number of units in his horde will increase by 1. But right now, he's low on mana, only 3 out of 30. He's surprised he only has 30 mana left. Then he notices that they cost a lot of mana to summon. He mentions he knew they were bothering him somehow, and asks if they can stop staring at him because he really doesn't like it. And all the little skeletons are there, despite how badly he's treating them. Then they continue on their way, with the little skeletons surrounding the protagonist as he advances. He says he has to concentrate to survive, and will end up making mistakes if he's careless. He thinks he doesn't quite understand what's going on, but so far, everything has been good, and for the time being, he will just survive. That's all he needs to think about. He has to pull himself together and get the hell out of there. Then he really starts to advance with his skeletons, but outside, the goblins are killing. Everyone sees him looking out the window and realizes the situation is better up there, because if he goes down without thinking, things will go to hell. He thinks he can't stay there forever, and decides that he will try to go down while letting those little guys go ahead of him. While the little skeletons are descending, that friend of the protagonist ends up running into them and starts to shout, hitting one of them in the head. But the protagonist calls Han, who is surprised by his Ongguo, asking what those things are. He tells Han not to worry, saying that they are. He starts to call the little creature's bodyguards, and the first one ends up getting beaten up for no reason at all. Poor thing. And his head gets cracked. And he asks Ron if he also chose a class card, is rooting for unification without even reading the newspapers, adding that they already knew he was lazy for postponing his military service because of Mong. But then he questions if he class, and Ron doesn't remember very well, until he realizes what the protagonist is talking about and says he's a rogue, but he asks why it had to be something like that, questioning how many stars it has. He asks about stars, mentioning he only had 1, and wondering if that's normal or even a good thing. The protagonist is disappointed by how clueless he is. That kid is something, and he tells him to keep believing it. Then he says they'll go somewhere safe first and that they should stay on good terms with the guys in front of them. However, the system speaks to him, saying their teamwork triggered a synergy effect. The synergy list appears as number 1, Rogue Dagger Group, Rank C, Synergy Category, Weapon Synergy. The condition is being equipped with 5 daggers. The effect is that he inflicts fatal blows with 10% increased damage and gains 10% more gold. Hanro asks if he's seeing this too, and the protagonist says yes, thinking about synergy and realizing there are buffs if people of similar types are grouped together. This means there are more benefits the longer one stays in group. But he's surprised it's happening, even though those little guys aren't people, and the game still counts them. He says he doesn't know the specifics yet, but it's a good deal overall. It's a good class, and it looks like he chose well. This means he can gain the same benefits as a group of people, even if he's playing solo. As he continues to descend, the little skeletons end up finding the goblins. But this time, there's also a much bigger monster nearby, and Hanro calls out to the protagonist, saying he thinks that guy is the boss, and the group of goblins becomes more weak after smelling death of rank 1, and the effect activates when he has 4 or more skeletons of the same species, and the goblins become afraid of the protagonist's entire group.